Hello everybody and welcome to the Monterey Peninsula in California. My goodness, if you could choose anywhere to live in the world, why would you want to go anywhere other than this? You've got the sea, you've got the beaches. If you're so inclined, you can go and play around on the golf course or indeed on the fantastic roads around here, perfect for 2 or 4 wheels. And that's before we even talk about the hospitality, the fabulous restaurants, eateries and bars. And there just happens to be one of the best 2.25 mile circuits anywhere in the world right on your doorstep as well. God's country? Possibly could be. The West Coast, the left coast is the best coast, is what they say around here. And on the West Coast, the 11 corners of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca have remained relatively unchanged throughout its history. The infield section that goes around the dry lake bed that gives Laguna Seca its name was added a few years ago now to just slow the cars down a wee bit and also put a bit more mileage into the track. But it's such an old school circuit here that we have names as well as numbers. Mario Andretti hairpin, the run up Bobby Rahal straight to the corkscrew, of course, as well. One of the signature areas of this track. Hello everybody, this is IMSA Radio and IMSA TV together with 2 hours and 40 minutes on the clock for the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship in the penultimate round of 2020's IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship. It's the last short race of the season, the last time that everyone has to have their sprint heads on, and joining me here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre is Jeremy Shaw, ready for today's race. We could not have asked for any better weather conditions, Jeremy. Kind of expect that when we come here. Early afternoon, temperatures rising, getting a bit of heat into the track. Let's go racing, I say.
Yeah, brilliant. Just such a shame there's no fans allowed here this weekend, of course, with the not lockdown, but certainly all the restrictions in place lately. So that's a real great show, because it's a super place for race fans to come and watch these cars really push to the limits in a great surroundings. But I think we're in for an exciting afternoon of racing. So even if we can't be there, at least we can watch the race with I think what we're going to see is a pretty dramatic pictures this afternoon.
Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit Paddock reporter. One or two pieces of shuffling around before we go to the storylines in the classes, and in particular Stephen has tweeted us here at IMSA Radio noting that the 911 is ahead of the BMW on the grid, although it didn't set a qualifying time. What's that all about?
Take new tires after qualifying. The 911 barely using their tires during qualifying, so it meant that Fred Macavecchi, although he qualified 6th, will now start 4th.
And as far as GT Daytona is concerned, what storylines have you been following there, Shea?
In the time since the merger, which was 2014, we have had wins from BMW, Porsche twice, Ferrari, Acura, Lamborghini. But what will 2020 deliver? Well, half of the manufacturers in that class, being Aston Martin, Audi, Lexus, McLaren, and Mercedes-AMG, have yet to take a win at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We have a 50-50 shot at a first-time winner in the manufacturer, and history says it will be another new one today.
Field has been cut down this year in GT Le Mans, but that hasn't stopped us having some fantastic battles between the three manufacturers who are still represented: Porsche, Corvette and BMW.
And in the last 6 years of competition there, we've had Corvette win, then BMW, then Ford, then Corvette, then BMW, then Ford, which says to me that Corvette is going to win today.
We've got one car in the LMP2 category, which we hear might be dropping to the back of the field so that it doesn't interfere with the championship runners in the other category. We'll confirm that from you as soon as we can. But in DPI, lockout on the front row for Acura. New lap record times for qualifying at the front of the field. What are you watching there?
In terms of DPI, the model of car was first introduced in 2017 when Cadillac won the race, Renger van der Zande making the pass at the corkscrew. That still lives in all of our hearts and minds. The next year, it was the Nissan for ESM and Pipo Derani claiming the win. And then last year, the Acura for Team Penske with the then championship leaders of Juan Pablo Montoya, pole sitter, and Dane Cameron, which tells me that there's one manufacturer that hasn't yet taken a win. Today is Mazda's day.
Oh, okay. That is very interesting indeed. The lights are out on the safety car. 2 hours and 40 minutes on the clock. Shuffle up to the edge of your seat, because that's where you're going to be. Take a deep breath now, because you may not get a chance for another one. Let's have a nice clean start. They're packing up. The two Acuras go in unison from the front row. It's Mazda and Cadillac on row 2, and the Mazda holding its own down on the inside to the left-hand side as they brake for the Mario Andretti hairpin for the first time. Then the GT Le Mans cars steam into view there, braking ridiculously late, it seemed to me. Looks like the Porsches held on to second position there as they go under the walkover bridge and towards turn 4 for the first time. And it looks as though pretty much everybody has held their positions from the start. Jeremy?
Yeah, nice clean start there. That's certainly good to see, because there was a few sort of potential flash points there at the front of the field. No LMP2 car in sight there, so Patrick Kelly does indeed appear to have dropped to the back of the field. Quite sure. It didn't really start from the pit lane or not, but it was certainly good to see a nice clean start. He was all bunched up down at the Mario Andretti hairpin, but the race leader, Juan Pablo Montoya, he's got a lot of experience around this racetrack. He knows how to keep that advantage to himself.
That's Jeremy Shaw. I'm John Hindhaugh, and we are off and running. Let's hope that we stay nice and clean through the race, and we have as little intervention as possible from the safety car. Through to the end of the first lap then. Montoya from Castro Neves, from Jarvis, from Bomarito, Acura, Mazda. Then Vautier, the first of the Cadillacs, as they head on to lap number 2. 31 degrees in the air, Celsius, 48 on the track. That's warm. This is a very low grip circuit, Jeremy, and as the temperature comes up, that's actually not going to help the Michelin tyres at all. It's going to tear them up as they're sliding across this very slick surface. It's a common misconception, isn't it, Jeremy, that low grip surfaces mean they don't wear the tyres. Exactly the opposite way around.
Yeah, it's a kind of strange situation, this place. It is hard on tyres, but it's not particularly grippy. The cars do slide a lot. It's the sliding motion that causes the degradation on the tyres. They don't necessarily wear out, but they do degrade. And it is a factor, and will be a factor all afternoon here. It's not super hot here today, I don't think, but it's certainly on the warm side. And the cars, well, it is fairly warm, 31 degrees. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it is.
Quite hotter than I thought. So that is going to be a real workout for these Michelin tyres.
Yeah, and for those of you in Europe where it is just after 9 o'clock, in the UK just after 10 o'clock in Central Europe, yes, we did say 31 Celsius. Balmy late autumn weather. The clocks fell back yesterday, yesterday effectively overnight into Sunday. So it is now effectively the fall, the autumn here in the USA, but very temperate conditions here this afternoon for the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship. 27 Celsius in Portimao earlier today for our early coverage of the ELMS, and slightly chillier but still rather pleasant 23 at Imola for the Formula 1 race, of course it was. Sorry, I was going to say complete procession, but that would be me making a value judgment. If you haven't watched the highlights, I wouldn't bother. 2 hours 36 to go. That's just me. 2 hours 36 to go. Penske, Mazda. Sorry, Jeremy.
That was going to be my next thing to do this afternoon.
No, actually,
I think I'll probably watch this race again. Actually,
well, do you know what? It's lovely to see all the new types of circuits, the old types of circuits being used. But what it shows is how much Formula 1 has developed in the time since they've been away, and how the old circuits simply aren't suitable for that type of racing anymore. It's changed so quick, the speeds are so high. It's remarkable. Lovely to watch though. You'll enjoy it, because you'll I mean, I'm having a laugh. Everybody knows that I watch Formula 1 all the time. even if there wasn't that much action in it. And you could probably guess the result. Montoya, Castro Neves, Ollie Jarvis, Bomarito, Vautier, Durrani, Briscoe and Least at the front of the field. In GT Daytona, Matt McMurray for Mershank Racing from pole position ahead of Turner Motorsports, Robbie Foley, and then Goldberg, then McNeil for Scuderia Corsa, the WeatherTech Ferrari, then Monte Calvo, then Ian James for Heart of Racing. It is still pretty tight there as they're getting themselves into a rhythm. I'm really pleased. I was slightly worried about the sharp end of the field. Patrick Kelly has joined on at the back of the field, Chair, and you think you've got the answer on what that PR1 Matheson Motorsport Orica did at the start of the race?
He came straight into the pits following the safety car in, and I've got confirmation of that. It's been 3 minutes and 10 seconds since his last visit to the pit lane. Very classy move by that organization.
Yeah, make sure he's not interrupting anybody else's battles, Jeremy.
Yeah, but why come here in that case? Just to change the championship, yes. I guess. I mean, yeah, the sad thing is, I just wish the LMP2 cars were able to run with the DPIs. That was a change that was made a couple of years ago. That would have made it a lot more fun for those guys. But it's a shame, and it's just a fact of life in this day and age with all the restrictions and the problems that the world has been caused by the pandemic. So that's, otherwise we would have had several more cars here, but with the season being completely changed around, to come all the way out to the west coast for an east coast based team, that costs an awful lot of money, of course. So they're going to stay on the east coast and just do those races up and down the east coast. PR1, of course, they're based here in California in Fresno, so they had to come back for this one in any case.
Hello to Robert Bester and to Alan Prosser and to Bryn Smith and plenty of others of you who are checking with us on @IMSA Radio as we're starting to settle in. Just a reminder, this is the first time that the whole field have been out on track at this time of day. The practice and qualifying sessions finished a little earlier than this. We had a tiny little bit of running to about this time actually on Saturday lunchtime, but this is very, very interesting as well to see how they have gathered the data, whether they have got the data. Wright Motorsport Porsche coming down to turn 10, sitting in behind that particular car, the Porsche that has had such a good run recently with Ryan Hardwick behind it, John Potter in the GRT Magnus Lamborghini, and Aaron Thielitz in the Ian Vassar Sullivan Lexus RCF. They're crossing the line right now, going under the bridge. Oh, if only I had looked, there's normally a miles per hour indicator, a speed trap there as they go through. And they turn into the long left-handed hairpin at Mario Andretti at turn number 2. Turn number 1 effectively is a kink on the front straight, which is absolutely foot to the boards, flat in all of the cars here today. Very odd not to see the bank sides packed with fans here. Always a big favourite, and the cars parked up on the hill towards the top of the corkscrew, glinting in the sunshine. That's one of the iconic images here. But great work by WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Everybody that works here, they've gone through times of change themselves, of course, in terms of the stewardship of the place and how it's been run and who's doing the running of it. Also, IMSA have worked really hard, as have our volunteers here at the track. Thank you very much indeed, whether you are one of the medical staff, the recovery, track services, or indeed just helping the teams find out where to park their cars, etc., or waving flags, of course. Simply can't go motor racing without you. Now, do we get a little pass for position here coming up to the start-finish line? Carl Robinson, who started the Riley Motorsports Mercedes, as Rob Furriel for Team Hardpoint for company, and he's just slipped by. Gar took new Michelins at the start of the race, and just a reminder of how things are going in the championships. The number 10 leads the championship at the moment in DPI, with the current pair of drivers potentially looking for full season drives next year. There's a big merry-go-round at the moment, or you could possibly call it musical chairs, and when the music stops, hopefully everyone will still have a seat. But certainly Renger van der Zande is looking for somewhere to go. Ryan Briscoe not guaranteed anything full-time from Wayne Taylor's organisation. And Shea, Adam, you've come up with a phenomenal statistic. We're losing Penske. Mazda are dropping down to one car. DPI drivers are all going to be putting themselves in the shop window in the next couple of races.
Drivers in today's race using this as an audition. We haven't had confirmation yet about where any of the Acura Team Penske drivers are going, although we believe 2 of them staying in the series and continuing on with the Acura program. But again, announcement hasn't been made, and it's not our announcement to make. But 11 of 16, that leads to a lot of desperation. And we're hearing that Felipe Nasser and Pipo Derani set to be locked back up with the Whelen Engineering Cadillac. That should be happening fairly soon, but as of right now, that would make it 13 of 16 drivers on the market.
A little bit of side-by-side action at the final corner a minute or two ago, and it indeed involved the number 31 car, Pipo Derani, having a battle with Ryan Briscoe and trying to get back on terms with Jonathan Bomarito.
I think he was dive-bombing his way past Tristan Vautier. I think is what happened there, and then Briscoe followed him through, I think. But I might be wrong. I was kind of looking at 2 different things at one day, and I've only got 2 eyes, and they tend to... Anyhow, so I think that's what happened there, because certainly number 5 car was leading a little train of cars, the 3 Cadillacs running together, with Vautier ahead of Pipo Derani, who'd lost a couple of positions right at the start of the race. Now he's made at least one of those back. He's going to chase after number 55 Mazda of Jonathan Bomarito.
Shea, Adam, with a VP Racing Fuel pit update on the number 911 Porsche.
Getting a report from the Porsche pit that there is a hole in the rear bumper of the 911 on the left-hand side. It appeared on the opening lap, but the team isn't entirely sure from what. So remember that this car qualified last, but had the 2 BMWs starting behind it. Maybe one of the BMWs deployed the James Bond tow hook to try and grab on, and it just didn't stick.
Okay, excellent stuff. As they continue around the circuit at the moment, coming down to 2 hours, just under 2 hours and 27 minutes to go. So already more than 10 minutes in the book. And it is Montoya from Castroneves by about 2 seconds. They're already into traffic, Jeremy, and this is going to be the race from now on, unless and until we get the safety car deployed. Let's hope we don't. Traffic is part of the lexicon of all these drivers. Our Porsche keys to the race: keep it on the racetrack between the white lines. There's lots of sand on the outside of the circuit here, and that can put paid to your day very, very quickly. Fuel and tyres and strategy will play their parts today, so picking your battles at the right time of the race is going to be very important. And of course, stay clean, not just with regard to being on the track, but also no penalties here. It's a very long pit lane if you've got to do a drive-through, and will cost you a lot of time. Jeremy, your thoughts on the first 15 minutes or so?
Rather boring, to be honest. It's all kind of settled down. There's not much action really in any of the classes. Number 6 car, Pablo Montoya, has pulled out a couple of seconds over the second place car. He's just even more that ahead now. Oliver Jarvis. There's perhaps a bit of a battle brewing there with the 2 Mazdas. They're separated by about 10-12 car lengths, and having got past Tristan Vautier, Pipo Derani has left him very rapidly behind, and is certainly closing in on the second of the Mazdas. In GTLM again, well, it was pretty much spaced out until on this last lap. I think there must have been a bit of traffic there. Jordan Taylor was to be closed up upon by Lawrence Vanthoor, but there was a second or so between them up until that. And in GTD, Mac McMurray, he's about a second and a half ahead of the second place car, Robbie Foley, in those sort of similar margin, which is sort of 12, 15 car lengths between most of the cars in GTD even. But hey, look, it's very, very early stages in what is going to be a long race.
Dare I suggest that even at this stage we're seeing a bit of tactical nous playing out. It's going to be 3 pit stops, is it, for the DPIs? I mean, could there be an element of fuel saving going on even at this early stage, Jeremy?
You're always saving fuel because the less fuel you put in at a stop, then the quicker the stop is going to be, even if it's only a few litres here and there. So they're always saving fuel for a variety of reasons. If there's full course cautions and if they can stay up another lap, that could always be a benefit. So yes, no one is running flat out at this stage in the race, that's for sure.
Okay then. Let's just run you through the standings at the moment. In GTD, it's Meyershank's Acura by about 1.6 seconds, then 1.2 seconds further back. It's Misha Goldberg in the Heinrich are racing with MSR in 3rd place. So Acura, BMW, Acura, Ferrari next up. That's nearly 3 seconds further back now from McNeil. Then Monte Carlo, as Patrick Kelly is pushing his way through the field. And Aaron Thielen sitting down in 11th position at the moment, Shea Adam. Is that a problem for that number 14 car?
That's just what I'm investigating right now, because this is the car that had a puncture in qualifying on the right rear tire, resulting in Aaron needing to come into the pits and basically starting from the back of the field. But the team has not yet gotten back to me as to whether everything is okay with that car or not, because Aaron Thielen's a guy who's got more poles than anyone else in the GTD category and a couple of race wins on the year, and provisionally the Sprint Cup champion. It's very difficult to pass here, but I would still expect a driver of his caliber to be a little bit further up the field.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, John, it's so difficult to pass here, and he's leading the championship. He can't afford to do anything silly. Yes, he certainly has a pace advantage over the cars ahead of him, but Ryan Hardwick and John Potter are just directly ahead of him. And unless there's an easy way to go through, he's going to stay there where he is right now, wait for the pit stop, save some fuel, look after the tires, look after the car. There's a long, long way to go in this race, so there'll be no panic down there at AIM Sullivan Racing, I'm sure.
GT Le Mans then, let's move up to them. Jordan Taylor has Lawrence Vanthoor right up his tailpipes, and meantime at turn 5, Patrick Kelly coming back through the field. This was the issue, of course, of dropping to the back. It meant that he would have to fight his way through GTD and potentially some GT Le Mans runners as well. Just went side by side a lap or two ago with one of the GTDs. Was that Till Bechtelscheimer he was side by side with there, and made a little bit of a contact. He's moved further up through the GTD. Oh, was it Misha? Thank you. Sorry, just caught the sight of an Acura with some blue on it whilst I was checking the timing. So he is picking his way through the field. Taylor, Vanthoor, Gavin, 2.7 seconds further back. Ollie Gavin in potentially his last ever sprint race for Corvette Racing. Announcement coming earlier on this week that Ollie will be dropping into an ambassadorial role for GM and Corvette, still being made available for the long distance races, we hear. The rumour mill's gone into full speed about who might be taking over from Ollie. I've heard Nick Tandy mentioned. I'll talk about that in a moment. Side by side for position into turn 2 with Pipo Derani and Jonathan Bomarito. That's for 4th position, and the red and white Cadillac goes round the dark red Mazda. Derani now with his Michelin tyres up to temp and pressure, beginning to push on. I would be surprised if Tandy went to Corvette, but I've been surprised in the past with the fact that I think people are putting 2 and 2 together and making it 176 just because Porsche aren't racing in the States. As far as I'm aware, Nick is still a Porsche factory driver. I haven't spoken to him about this. This is just my opinion, but as we're being asked about it, Nick also runs a very successful Porsche team in Carrera Cup GB, and has just won the Total 24 Hours for Porsche. And with the fact that GT Le Mans' future in IMSA is under discussion at the moment, Corvette might not even have a programme over here, so why would you move to that? And also Corvette didn't go to Le Mans. Now neither did Nick's Porsche team either, but Corvette, given the current climate, is not necessarily going to be going to Le Mans either, which is where Nick wants to be. I'm not speaking for Nick, I'm just saying I can find a lot more reasons for him not to leave Porsche and go to, and certainly not to go to Corvette. I can think of other places he might want to go to, mind you, in terms of his racing, because he's always wanted to do circuit to do oval racing. If GM offers him an Xfinity drive, he might jump at that. But there you go. It's silly season. Expect to hear all of these rumours coming up in the next few months. And Nick's not in the car at the moment, and I bet Brittany's listening. Hello, Brittany and family Tandy. And hello, Nick, who'll be listening as well. And if I've got that entirely wrong, you can send me a text and come on Midweek Motorsport on Wednesday and tell me what really is going on. So 2 hours and 19 minutes to go. Lots of changes for 2021 coming in IMSA, with new teams, current teams taking on new cars, drivers swapping seats, teams going away. Oh, there's some contact there from an Acura on the back of the Corvette into the final corner. Something looked like it may have been knocked loose there. Was that Montoya? I think it was. In behind the GT Le Mans leader. That was unnecessary roughness, I think, there. Sorry, I did say I was watching Bedzone before I came on. It was Passer doing the roughing there. Bit of pass interference. As through goes the Ollie Jarvis car. Actually, it was Castro Neves. Apologies to Juan Montoya. That was Castro Neves who was doing the pushing, not for the first time this weekend. He's made contact with somebody else unnecessarily. Let's see if that one gets looked at in the context of what's been going on. Leading 4, Jeremy, and what's 10 seconds apart and in traffic. This is the opportunity for a little bit of ground to be made up. And in fact, the leader held up for a moment behind the right Porsche coming down to turn 10.
Yeah, but the gap had been pretty stable, around about 2 seconds for quite a long time, and then out to 3. All of a sudden it's over 5.5, now down to 4. Last time around he's going to come towards the stripe again now, passing a slew of GTD cars, including the McLaren there, as he goes across the line to complete lap 17. As you see another replay of the Acura getting into the back of Oliver Gavin. That was a very strange move, completely unnecessary that for Castro Neves. But 4 seconds again between first and second as he complete lap 17. So he'd certainly stretched it out, and the closest battle in DPI is a second and a half between the two cars. So surprisingly spread out. This is an early pit stop.
It's 912 that is in the pit lane. Shea Adam was watching Lawrence Vantour. That is not at the appropriate time for that car to be in. What are you hearing?
It's fuel and tires for Larry as he stayed aboard that car. 6 laps into this race, though, I was expecting the earliest pit stop to come around lap 20, so that might have been a problem. I'll get in touch with Aaron right now.
This stage race either, John, because I don't think they can get to the end from here on 2 stops. Well, 1 stop I should say. So yeah, kind of somewhat strange.
Right. Yeah. Jordan Taylor in the pits as well. Shea Adam. This is the number 3 Corvette from the lead of the pit. What's going on here? Are they just covering off the van? They're covering off Vantour. They're worried about the undercut, aren't they?
That's exactly what they're doing, John. This could also be precipitated by that contact with Jordan's brother's car.
Good point.
Not at all awkward there. But there was that contact the lap before, but they had been expecting to do a 3-stop all along. So this is just shortening the first and elongating the second and third.
Right, getting off the tyres they qualified on, maybe, Jeremy,
Correct.
for the guys at the front of the field?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we talked about the tyre wear being an issue. I'd have thought, 2 stops, two and a bit stops. I mean, for the prototypes, it's kind of 2 3/4 stops needed in this sort of length of a race. For the GT cars here, I'd have thought just kind of just over 2 and a steady caution. There is a possibility of doing it on 2, but because that tyre wear is definitely a factor, I think maybe they're just trying to sort of even out the stints a little bit. It's still relatively early for a pit stop at this stage, but certainly the BMWs are really struggling. I mean, they've fallen a long way back. The best of the BMWs is Jesse Krohn. They switched positions early in the race, like 4 or 5. 24 car ahead of the 25. Even number 24 car is 4 seconds behind what is now the battle for the lead between Gavin and Makowiecki in the Corvette and Porsche. But the second of the Corvettes, Bruno Spengler, he's nearly 10 seconds behind his teammate.
Right, okay. So the leaders in class, Montoya. Ollie Gavin now leads in GTLM. Patrick Kelly obviously picking his way through, has got through the GTD field now. Matt McMurray leading still from pole with just on 100 laps to go, or 2 hours and 14 minutes. That's how they stand here on RS2 IMSA Radio, Sirius 113 XM202, and of course in sound and vision at radio-show.co.uk. Shea Adam has some bad news from LMP2.
Car number 52, that is the PR1 Matheson Motorsport entry. Patrick Kelly started it. Simon Trummer is supposed to take it over. It has actually gone behind the wall. Now, this is a car that had gearbox issues earlier in the week. I'll send a text message and investigate to find out if that's what's going on again. But that car no longer out on track.
Well, that's a very odd situation, and they did have a little side-by-side contact earlier on with Misha Goldberg's car, and so maybe that caused an issue with the side pod or something. So leaders are still the 2 Acuras, and there's now 7 seconds between those two and 8 seconds back to the battle for what is 3rd and 4th. Another pit stopper from GT Le Mans, Shea Adam. This is really weird.
This is very weird because Jesse Krohn should not be coming into the pits this early, even if it is for fuel and tires, because he started on new tires. That's why he started at the second to last spot on the grid for Jesse Krohn. But I'm just wondering, John, if each of the manufacturers is splitting their strategy, one car doing a 2-stopper, one car doing a 3-stopper. The 912, the 3, and the 24 have already indicated that they're going to be doing 3 stops this race. The 4, the 911, and the 25 have all stayed out, so perhaps they are all going for a 2-stop.
Alan Prosser, king of the screen grabs, has already noted that there'll likely be, Shea, a nose change for Elio's car when he comes in. Both front left dive planes are now missing after that quite substantial contact where he actually lifted the rear wheels of the Corvette off the floor. Haven't seen off the ground. I haven't seen a note that that's been investigated yet. But that was clearly quite even more significant contact than it looked to us at the final corner.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to see that there's various people struggling out there. Certainly, it's a surprise to see the BMWs, as Shea was saying, in so soon.
I think it's track temperature, Jeremy.
In so soon.
I think it's track temperature with 47 Celsius now, and I wonder if that's just. And bear in mind, you have to start the race here in IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship on the tyres on which you qualified, or you take a penalty. Both of those,
which they did.
Yeah, but both the cars that have been in started on their qualifying tyres, which was done at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, not in the heat of the day. And that's the only category, of course, where you do have a choice of tyre compounds in GT Le Mans. There's 3 different slicks from Michelin, the confidential tyres as they're called. So I just wonder if there's something there in the fact that we are much warmer now. From memory, I think it was around about 31, 32 degrees Celsius when the track temperature when we qualified. We're 47 now, and it's still rising.
Yeah, and there's quite a few cars that are struggling out there, not so much in GTD, I think, but I was just going to say, this car here, number 5, Tristan Vertier, he was dropping back rapidly. He'd lost a couple of seconds a lap, if not more, to the number 10 car over the last half a dozen laps or so. Really struggling. It was that number 5 car, so he's finally given up the unequal struggle and makes his pit stop with just half an hour gone in this race, and I think that's fine. Yeah, half an hour. They could do probably about 38 minutes on a stop if they need to here, the prototype cars. So I think by stopping now, he's still going to be able to do it on 3 pit stops in this race.
That's Jeremy Shaw. He is in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre with me, John Hindhaugh. Shea Adam is our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter and can give us some GT Le Mans tyre updates and an update on the number 52, which went behind the wall about 5 minutes ago. Shea, what do you have?
I'll give you the update on the 52 first, because I know there are a lot of people out there who were cheering for that little team. They are setting up the car and checking all systems to be good for Sebring, which is the next race that they are heavily invested in. So that's what their focus is now, not necessarily winning this one, but making sure they have a good car for the next time out. In terms of these pit stops that we've been seeing for GTLM, there are different tire compound choices in that class. You can go on the soft or the medium. Most of these competitors went on the softer Michelin to go out for qualifying, but that's not expected to last as long. The 3 car, which was the pole car, they have now switched to the medium tire compound for a longer run. The number 4 car stayed on the same medium compound on which they qualified, but they did just put new tires on that car for Oliver Gavin.
And I'm hearing from a few teams that they are struggling for grip. And by the way, just as an adjunct to something I mentioned earlier, I mentioned the word ambassador for Ollie Gavin. That was my word. That's not what was in the release. Continued relationship planned for the future between Ollie and Corvette GM. We'll have a chat with Ollie in the next few weeks on Midweek Motorsport once he gets back to the UK. And see if we can pry some more information. The tireless long ones that we did with him down through the years, we've done a couple of them now. In fact, one of them we recorded here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Also did a one here with Christian Fittipaldi as well. And we recorded another one at Bathurst, I seem to remember, with Ollie. All ones that I've enjoyed in the past. Well, these early pit stops continue, Shea Adam, and in from the lead of GT Le Mans, Fred McAvecchi.
And the tires that came off that car were quite worn, so perhaps it is just a difficult condition out there given the heat, as you guys were talking about. That is a big factor here today, but it is still Fred McAvecchi staying aboard, and I believe it was the same compound of rubber that they went out and qualified on, which means that Bruno Spengler now leads the race, and not just in the digital world.
Very good point, yeah. At the head of the field, it is 6.5 seconds now, the gap between Montoya and Castro Neves, with Ollie Jarvis still 7 seconds further back. He's got 3 seconds on Durrani, so that battle's eased a little bit. Championship leader, the number 10 car, is another 5 seconds further back. Now, has there been more contact between an Acura and another car? Just checking back a few moments ago. It's just a video game up the Bobby Rahal straight. Left, right, left again, dropping through the GT Daytona cars for our leader. That did look very clean indeed, as they dive down from the highest point of the circuit. And again, final corner is stacking them up. We've got a prototype in the pit lane. I think it was Ollie Jarvis was a white, I think it was the white Mazda coming in, and I've got a feeling Pipo Derani has followed him in, as we've got side-by-side action as well. Shea?
We've got a busy pit lane with Oliver Jarvis in, as you mentioned, and Pipo as well, but we've just had Jonathan Bomarito in the other Mazda come in and make his first pit stop, fuel and tires for that car. In terms of the other pit stoppers, we've had Mateus Laced in the Banana Boat. The Banana Boat lives again for JDC Miller Motorsport, fuel and tires for them as well.
Thank you, Shea. That's VP Racing pit and paddock report. So just coming down to the 2-hour mark, 2005 still to go. Keeping an eye on the times. They've all gone out, so everybody is struggling for grip at the moment. As the 52 car was the car that went behind the wall early on, so still 27 cars running here at the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship, our Sunday main. Wherever you are around the world, thanks for joining us. More pit stops now as well. That's the two Acuras that have come in. Now they don't pit together on the pit lane. Again, they'll be doing that, trying to cover off. Ryan Briscoe's not stopped yet, so he's up to third and will continue to climb up. Now, I'm not sure that he'll... my apologies, Ryan hasn't stopped. Yes, I was right. So he's going to be scored as the leader as he comes through, and is, as he goes down towards the first corner and around it, waiting for the two Acuras to pull out of the pit lane. Now, Ollie Jarvis and Pipo Derani came in a lap earlier, so how have they been for traffic? It's Dane Cameron now in behind the wheel of the number 6. He's out first of the two Acuras, came in with about 6 seconds lead, and Ricky Taylor has got into the other car. I've got a feeling the heat here is causing more trouble, as many troubles for the drivers as it is for the tyres. 48 on the track, 31 not scorching hot, but possibly a little hotter than was being expected there. So Briscoe leads now by 26 seconds, Jeremy.
Yes, and again, you know, he's done a fine job in this early stint. He made a pass on the first lap to get past number 85 car, and then kind of ran in a train behind the 5 and the 31. When the number 31 car made a forceful move on number 5, Briscoe was able to sneak past him. So all the way along there, he's been able to sort of save a bit of fuel and run longer and longer and longer. That means his final stint should be shorter on a fresher set of tyres, and that will should play out to his favour later on. Plus, he's still running a pretty respectable pace right now. He wasn't losing really anything to the cars in front of him after getting past number 55 Mazda about 5-6 laps ago. So it's been a really good, sensible opening stint for Ryan Briscoe. In fact, he hasn't even come in yet on lap 28, so he's saved an awful lot of fuel in that number 10 car.
Yeah, that is good news. But we've seen this, Jeremy. We shouldn't be that surprised. We've seen the Cadillacs being able to go long, and in particular that Cadillac, the Briscoe and Van der Zande car, has been able to go long. Yeah,
I mean, you know, that is the plan for that car, and they're executing it absolutely perfectly right now. We've got a bit of a battle going on. Can't see it actually, but we've got a battle going on at the moment for third position now with Ricky Taylor. All of a sudden, he's about 11 seconds behind his teammate Dane Cameron, who's taken over from Pablo Montoya. Ricky Taylor in for Elio Castroneves. But all of a sudden, he's got not only Oliver Jarvis hot on his heels, but also Pipo Derani as well in kind of a 31.
Yeah, and that share, Adam, was all down to a better pit stop from Multimatic.
Mazda, that's the white one of Ollie Jarvis, 53 seconds in the pit lane for Acura Team Penske. Both of the Penske cars with 53-second long penalties. Both of the Mazdas with 50. Mazda wins right now.
Yeah, and that, I mean, our Porsche keys to the race. We did mention getting in and out the pits and using your strategy to the best possible. Well, that seems to be what they have done. And the Mazda now, or the Mazda driver, Ricky Taylor, that's because Ollie Jarvis has just been passed by Pipo Derani. So Derani's right in there as well. as they are battling now behind Ricky Taylor for third place, Dane Cameron for second, Ryan Briscoe still to stop for us. So for the moment then, we have the battle recommence between Pipo Derani and Ricky Taylor. This one came to swapping carbon fibre at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, in the closing stages of the race. Pipo Derani with target acquired now as they head up the Bobby Rahal Straight. And Mr. Rahal, if you are listening and watching, continued success on your recovery. Hope to see you back at the racetrack shortly. And here, finally, Shea Adam, spot on the 2-hour mark, comes our leader.
Yeah, and it's about time for Ryan Briscoe to get out of the car and to enjoy the beautiful California weather as Renger van de Zande, the man who loves this track so much, now taking over the glossy black Cadillac from his teammate. Remember, this car started with new tires, brand new tires at the beginning of the race, and now it's getting another set of brand new tires. So it was expected to be a bit of an elongated stint for Ryan Briscoe to begin this one, as now the clock is down below 2 hours. Perfect pit stop from the Konica Minolta crew as the tires were done well before the fuel. Car dropped off the air jacks and then gently rumbled back into the fast lane.
So, I mean, that's still going to be 2 pit stops from here, Jeremy, for that number 10 car, and it just perhaps shortens up the final pit stop. Is that what we're thinking there?
Yes, but you know, for a variety of reasons, they should have fresher tyres conceivably for the final stint of the race, and perhaps leading a little bit less fuel as well, as we see now where Pipo Derani really putting the pressure on Ricky Taylor. This is going to be really interesting. We don't want to miss a moment of this scrap, because a couple of weeks ago, Pipo Derani made a brilliant pass on Ricky Taylor heading into turn 1 at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, and about 25 minutes later, 12 minutes before the end of the race, or 12 laps before the end of the race, whatever it was, I can't remember, 12 minutes, I guess, Ricky Taylor made a somewhat clumsy attempt to pass Pipo Derani, at least in my opinion, and the number 31 car was bundled off the road and pretty much out of the race, and certainly out of the championship lead. So Pipo Derani, he's already said coming into this weekend, it was a big blow to their championship aspirations. So for them, it's win or bust this weekend. And by win or bust, if it's bust, well, you know, they're not going to win the championship in any case, so they've got to go for everything they possibly can. That's if you can get close enough to Ricky Taylor.
Yeah, that's a good point. He is close to him now as they head down towards turn 4. The Wright Motorsport Porsche just slowing up the Acura of Ricky Taylor for a moment as they head into turn 5 and start to climb on the far side of the circuit from the pits. And it's, well, as you say, Jeremy, it's all going to be down to whether he can get somewhere close to him. I don't think he's going to strike out looking, to be honest. He's going to go down swinging, isn't he? He's right with the Acura now as they come out of the corkscrew with traffic ahead of them. They're going past the battles in GTD, and they're getting closer to the front of the GTD field. Just gone past the battle for fourth, fifth and sixth with Cooper McNeil there. Now right in behind Ian James for Heart of Racing. The Aston Martin, they've gone past him, and now they've got the BMW GT Le Mans car, the number 24 of Jesse Krohn, to go by as well. They've managed to get past him, and now going past Ollie Gavin. Oh, there's a touch as Pipo Derani tried to squeeze down the inside. He was trying to stay with the Acura, but possibly was just being a little ambitious there and drifted away from the first apex of the second corner. And that was side-by-side contact. Corvettes. So that's both Corvettes that have been accosted by prototypes, one by the Acura, now one by a Cadillac. That's internecine, that, Jeremy. That's GM on GM action.
Yeah, twice. No, the other one was the Acura, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, he's desperate, is Pipo Derani, not to lose any ground to Ricky Taylor. He wants to be in a position to try and make a pass, and ideally for him, that would come in traffic, because we know how quick this Acura is. They were on perhaps didn't show their full hand yesterday in practice. I mean, they weren't far off. They weren't the quickest cars yesterday, but they were in qualifying this morning. They were here last year, so very definitely the Acura. Everybody knows the Acura is going to be tough to beat. So any chance you get, you're going to have to go for it, and that's certainly in the mind of people at Ferrari right now.
It's Jeremy Shaw. He's with me, John Hindorf, in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Under 2 hours to go now, and still this battle raging on for second position. Let's not forget the other classes where we're coming round, Shea Adam. I'll keep my eye on what's going on for second. We're coming round to a significant point in the GT Daytona story of the race.
Once we have now passed 45 minutes into the race, we have the pit window open where minimum drive time has been met by the GTD drivers. So if you are a silver or bronze driver and you wish to share the car with your perhaps more experienced co-driver, now you may do so. And we could see the pros getting in the Pro-Am half of the equation for the remainder of the race.
Yeah, good spot on that. Temperature on the track now 46 Celsius. It's not getting any warmer in the air. It's holding around about 31, 32 Celsius. But this is just the impact of the California sun beating down on the surface, the UV heating up the track, and that's had a real impact already, particularly on GT Daytona. With Lawrence Vanthoor leading there from Bruno Spengler in second. Spengler due for a pit stop anytime soon. He's been out for 32 laps. Vanthoor has done his run here in effectively 2 16-lap stints. Spengler not been into the pit? He must have been into the pit.
No, he hasn't.
My goodness, that's extraordinary. I thought I was second guessing myself there as the GT Daytona pit stops start, Shea Adam, and one of the leading lights already in and out of the pit lane in GTD.
Well, we've got Super Mario out on track in the 86 Fireshank Racing Acura. Robbie Foley came in and pitted and handed over to Bill Oberlin in the 96 Turner Motorsport BMW. Cooper McNeil came in the 63 Scuderia Corse Ferrari. He'll be handing over to Alessandro Balzan. We've got Ian James in the 23 Heart of Racing Aston Martin. That is now Roman DeAngelis taking over there, the young Canadian. Brian Hardwick in for Wright Motorsport, and now Patrick Long for the remainder of this race in that 16 Porsche. Stand back. Frank Montecalvo came in and handed over to Townsend Bell. We've had Gar Robinson in the 74 Mercedes. That's now Lawson Aschenbach. Aaron Thielitz in the 14 Lexus. That's now Jack Hawksworth. Till Bechtelsheimer in the 22 the Gradient Racing Acura. That is now Mark Miller. Jeff Kingsley came in the 76 Compass Racing McLaren and handed over to Paul Holton. And Rob Ferriel came in and handed over to Spencer Pumpelly in the Hardpoint Racing Audi. Everybody came in except for Misha Goikberg and John Potter. Now Goikberg is in and handing over to Alvaro Parent, and John Potter will be coming in and passing off to Andy Lally. So there you go. There's some names to contend with.
Thank you, Shea Adam there. And Cameron then now 10.5 seconds ahead of Taylor. And that's as much Cameron doing decent times as Ricky Taylor's pace dropping back a bit. He's half a second slower again that time around, and he's still got Peter Durrani right up his tailpipes. Jordan Taylor, his brother, is in second position at the moment, but it's this battle for second place in the race, Jeremy, that is keeping us on our toes.
Well, it very much is, because Dane Cameron last time was a pretty good lap, which was 17.8. Which is kind of the best lap we've had for a little while, actually. You get very few clear laps without any traffic all around here. The fastest lap of the race was set much earlier on by Juan Pablo Montoya at a 16.9, 1:16.921. That was on lap 4. So since then, or lap 5 it might have been actually, because he said almost identical laps on each of those 2 laps. But since then, he's extended that lead gradually. It was out to about 8.5 seconds before the round of pit stops, and you say now out to 11. But the battle for second place very much on. That strategy called by number 10 car to stay out longer than everybody else. It was a full 5 laps longer than three of the cars, 77, 31 and 55. It was 4 laps more than them. It was 3 laps more than the two Acuras. It didn't actually pan out in its favour insofar as the number 10 car did lose a position to the number 55 Mazda, but we'll have to see whether that will be kind of repaid in the later stages of the race. I fancy it will.
Bruno Spengler did come in at the end of the last lap. He swapped over to Connor De Filippi. That was an outstanding stint where everyone else has pitted in GT Le Mans. That was 34 laps, all green, 54 minutes from the start for Bruno Spengler. Now, of course, he's dropped back now, but what is that going to do in terms of opening up the pit window later in the race? We do often get a safety car here because of the difficulty if you go off the track. Remember, we were talking about it in our Porsche Keys to the Race about staying between the white lines. That's very interesting. I'm not counting that car out yet, Jeremy. With Connor De Filippi in it, let's keep an eye on the pace of the number 25 car. That is a very different. We've said we'd say some different strategies. That one is totally different to everybody else.
Well, clearly, yeah, that car definitely, is aiming for just a two-stop strategy. So if they can get the end race, making one less pit stop than everybody else, and if they can make their tyres last, then that could be really good for that number 25 car. That was the last of all of the cars to make a pit stop during this race.
Well, 54. Let's say they did another 54. That's 108 minutes. Yeah, they could go at the end from there. You're spot on. So that's very interesting. Now, a moment or two ago, problems down at Acura for Meyer Shank Racing. Shea Adam, excuse me.
Only one of her.
Not the Southampton striker, who's been in fine form, in fairness, Shea. The 57 car taking its pit stop a moment or two ago.
It was a long pit stop for 4 of the GTD cars on the pit lane, the 57 being one of them. Didn't actually see why it was long necessarily, but for 4 cars, it was more than a minute. The 76 Compass McLaren, the 22 Gradient Racing Acura, and also the 44 Magnus Lamborghini, which, by the way, has just come back down the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty. Wheel rotation while on the jack stand is a major no-no, so Andy Lally has an even more uphill battle than he already did. The man who is nursing a skateboarding injury sustained earlier this week to his right leg.
And for those that don't know, Andy is a bit of a extreme sports fan. He held a world record for a little while in downhill sort of street luge. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you, Jeremy, for that. New fastest lap in GT Daytona. Team Hardpoint, Spencer Pumpelly installed in that number 30 Audi with the Audi tyre centre support on that car. Just running the one car this weekend. They have been running a GT4 car as well, but concentrating on the GT3 car. 126.299 for that car. Currently in 12th position, and with some time to make up on the cars ahead, but Spencer Pumpelly getting down to business straight away as he gets that car up to pace.
Yeah, all of the pro drivers in the cars now, and their times tumbling in GT Daytona. Alvaro Perez just turned a 126.3 in the 3rd place car. That's number 57 Acura as well. So yeah, good lap times, but that was a very particularly good one from Spencer Pumpelly. The lap record in GT Daytona, by the way, was set indeed by Alvaro Perez at a 125.0. That was 2 years ago, same year that Catherine Legg took the qualifying lap record, also with a Meyer Shank Acura, 124.4. The fastest lap of the race last year was a 25.4 by Tony Vilander in the Ferrari. And as you said, 26.2, the best lap so far by Spencer Pumpelly.
Shea Adam has been watching the strategy in GT Daytona, and it might appear there's been an early strategy call from Aim Vassar Sullivan. Track position very important here, Shea.
And that 14 Lexus, the one that stands to win the sprint championship here today for Jack Hawksworth and Aaron Telitz, was mired at the back of the field after starting pretty much at the back after suffering a puncture during qualifying and being unable to set a fastest lap time. That meant that Aaron Telitz had to start from way back in the field, and he was not able to pass very many people to move further up the field. So what did Lexus do to retaliate? They did a short fill. It was only 50 seconds total for Jack Hawksworth in the pit lane, meaning that that car does not have a full fuel load. It should be pitting before everyone else, but it has resulted in the 14 Lexus now sitting in the 8th position in class.
Because of the fact he was running a pretty conservative pace through that first stint, he didn't use so much fuel either. So not only, as you say quite correctly, but also they probably put, they would have needed less in any case. So that was a really good, I think, decision by that team. That's why I think we saw that pretty conservative pace in the early stint.
Just getting a few messages from teams up and down the pit lane as well. And they're clearly feeling, with the track temperature just still hovering around about 46 Celsius. The air temperature has dropped back a degree or two, now 30 Celsius. Keeping the tyres under the cars are key today. That's what we're hearing up and down the pit lane. And I think even for some of the teams that can go long on fuel, it's a real gamble to keep the performance. It's always one of those compromises, Jeremy. It takes you a finite amount of time to get down pit lane and put a new set of Michelin tyres on the cars, no matter which class that you're in. But if you are losing 2 seconds or so a lap, which can happen at the end of a stint, if you're trying to do the last 10 laps, let's say, then there's a balancing act that has to be looked at. There's almost a graph and an if-then kind of calculation that has to be done about how to get to the end of the race most efficiently.
True that. Strategy is hugely important. In GTLM, we've got pretty much all the cars on slightly different strategies. Number 25 cars very different to everybody else, certainly. But even the rest of them, they made their pit stops quite a few laps apart. The Corvettes. 4 laps apart. The 2 Porsches were in 7 laps apart. So these different strategies opening up potential opportunities for different scenarios later in the race.
And by the way,
the fastest lap in GTD, by the way, now.
Yes.
Bill Arbelin in 2nd position.
Bill Power.
Bill Power, exactly.
Turned up to 11.
But on that same lap,
down the leader.
On that same lap, Mario Farnbacher turned his best lap as well at 1:26.5.
I was correct in my assumption that Brittany Tandy is listening. Always listening, she says on Twitter at IMSA Radio. Community radio for the paddock. It just happens that our community radio isn't in a small geographical area. It's spread across the world in these times. Brittany, hope you and the family are good. And Nick's still to get in the car, so I'm sure you're swapping texts with him as well. Or is he in the zone already? Biggest question I want to know is how many new Tamiya models has he bought recently? He's got the RC bug quite heavily at the moment, has Mr. Tandy. Yet to be installed in the 911, which currently runs in 3rd position behind the Corvette of Jordan Taylor, that is behind the 912 Porsche of Lawrence Van Tour, separated by about 20 seconds at the moment, those top 3. So just spreading out a little bit. For me, Jeremy, this whole race, we've often seen side-by-side action here. But I've got a strong suspicion what we're going to see today is people just trying to make sure that they get the best average lap speed across the 2 hours and 40 minutes today, because you make a slight miscalculation one way or the other, and I think it's more tyre dependent than anything else, then that could really cost you a good position.
Yeah, agreed. We're certainly seeing several people struggling with their tyres. Not so much in GT Daytona, I don't think, from what I can see at least. Through that first stint, number 86 car, it's Matt Murray that started that car. He pulled out about 7 seconds over Robbie Foley in the Turner Motorsport BMW. That gap right now is just under 6 seconds between Mario Farnbacher, who's taken over from Matt Murray, and Bill Oberlin. Then there's a big gap there back to third position. That's Alvaro Parent. And then behind him, another good gap, 8 seconds back to Alessandro Balzan, but behind him is quite a bit closer. Roman DeAndres and Patrick Long, both pretty much together in 5th and 6th, right behind Balzan. And then Townsend Bell, the 2 Lexuses, is in 7th and 8th. But again, I think just being pretty conservative at this stage in the race. Also noting, I talked about the fact number 10 car fell behind the number 55 during the first round of DPI pit stops. Well, now Renger van der Zanden has closed right in again on the Mazda. And I think, as in the first stint in the race, 2 Mazdas, I think they're struggling with tyre wear somewhat more than one would have anticipated, certainly in comparison to their rivals.
Yeah, and they've got 8 laps or so to go, 7 laps or so to go, if they go the same distance as they did on their first set, which of course did have some qualifying on them as well. At the front of the field, Dane Cameron's got 9 laps to go, possibly 10, depending on whether he can eke out another lap. Don't forget there was a couple of formation laps as well from the start of the field. Ricky Taylor, well, he's been out the same number of laps. He's on his 19th lap on that set of tyres at the moment. Pipo Derani on his 20th lap. Ollie Jarvis on his 20th lap. Jonathan Bomarino on his 21st lap on the Michelins. Renger van der Zanden on his 16th lap. Tristan Vautier on his 24th lap. So the 5 Mustang Sangling Cadillac of the DPIs will be the first of those cars to come in, and he's already gone a lap or 2 longer than he did at the start of the race, so he might come any time now. I suppose it depends on them back timing to the end. We have got 98 minutes to go. So I think you've got to make another 5, maybe even 10 minutes for the DPIs to get into the window where there's only 2 stops from here. As far as
that's no problem. That should be no problem.
Yeah, as far as GT Le Mans concerned, Vantour is on his 28th lap leading. Jordan Taylor on his 27th lap in 2nd. Matteo on his 21st lap in 3rd. Ollie Gavin on his 23rd lap in 4th, and on 25th lap in 5th of these stints, Jesse Krohn, with Connor De Filippi by far the best off, because of course of that monster stint of 34 laps by Bruno Spengler. 54 minutes, Bruno, in that car, and that's put that car on a significantly different strategy. We are surmising, and I can only think they've done that to save a full pit stop, and I think they're on target to do that, Jeremy. I've just done a bit of a back of the envelope calculation, but I think if that car can do a similar amount of time, 54, 55 minutes, then clearly they're going to be able to go to the end on just 1 more pit stop from now, as everybody else is going to have 2 in that category. GT Le Mans, the ball being out a little bit short.
But already though, Conte Filippi, he's a long way back behind the class leader. Just a gap back to him. It's over. Has he been lapped by Vantour? It's certainly 40 seconds. It's well over a minute in any case.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he has been lapped yet, but he's well over a minute behind, and so that's probably not really enough to make up for 1 less pit stop. The rate is going anyways.
Yeah. And that, we've said this at the longer races, at Le Mans, at Petit Le Mans, at Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, which comes up as our season finale this year. That's all on the spreadsheet. That's all in the engineer and the strategists and the drivers have to work together to work out how that race is going to go. I suspect the they might have thought we would have had a bit of yellow flag running as well, as yet, and it is blame Hindhaugh if it all goes horribly wrong from now on, as Dean Cameron continues to lead by nearly 10 seconds. I suspect that would have factored into their calculations as well. You can't bet there will be, but there's a better than average chance here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Now that said, it is the absolute operational procedure, Jeremy, that obviously any safety occurrences, you neutralise the race straight away. But it's not a hair trigger from the IMSA race direction team, and we've commented on this before, how well they are prepared and how much they are prepared to wait and see how a situation on or just off the track develops, to give a driver and a car a chance to recover the track and make their own way back to the pits, or indeed continue the race. And I really like that, I do. I think it's important even in these sprint races.
Yeah, I completely agree. It certainly makes a better race for it, and it doesn't sort of ruin teams' races through no fault of their own. It gives an opportunity. If some guy is able to make a pit stop, the race control will try and make sure that everybody else that's kind of in contention with them will have an opportunity to do so also before they saw the full cause caution. At the same time, there's communications going out to the team saying, you know, there is an instance in this part of the racetrack, so make sure your driver is fully aware of that. If we see anything dangerous, then we're going to call a penalty on them. So, you know, that communication is really, really important from race control, so that everybody knows exactly where they stand.
WeatherTech Ferrari going through the final corner. That is Alessandro Balzan for Scuderia Corsa in the 488 GT3, and cross through the start-finish line in its 2020 livery. That I think we first got on the resumption of IMSA racing on the 4th of July weekend, which is the white car, and rather just with the black WeatherTech branding. There's red, white and blue flashes on that car, and sitting, as I say, with Balzan at the moment in 4th position, but he's coming under pressure from Roman De Angelis for Heart of Racing Team's Aston Martin. It's the blue number 23 behind the white number 63. Further back down the further up the field, Alvaro Parent. He is 20 seconds away from the Turner Motorsport BMW, that is 2 seconds away from Farnbacher. So that's Bill Oberlin who's closed that down, Jeremy.
Yeah, very much so. Rapidly, in actual fact, over the last 3 or 4 laps, he's pulled in probably an average of 3/4 of a second a lap, or better than that. Bill's flying at the moment, and pretty soon now, unless Mario Farnbacher can turn up the wick somehow, he's going to have the BMW from Turner Motorsport filling his mirrors. These are the 2 cars that started on the front row of the grid. They fell as much as 7 seconds or so apart, 8 seconds apart at one stage, but now it's down to less than 2. But at the same time, pulling away from Alvaro Parent after the round of pit stops, the 3rd place car was about 17 seconds behind. It's now about 19, so not very much. You know, a couple of seconds perhaps the Bill has pulled out over Alvaro Parent.
Jeremy Shaw and John Hindhaugh in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter is Shea Adam, and you'll find us around the world on RS2 IMSA Radio Sound and Vision for those of you outside the USA at radio-show.co.uk. No interruptions to that, and no fees required. It's NBCSN if you're in the States. Tape delay. If you're listening to us now, you can relive this at 6:30 Eastern tonight. And if you have to move around and you don't have great connectivity, Sirius 113 XM 202. But the dust thrown up in the battle between the the Acura and the GRT number 44. That's the Lamborghini. Spencer Pumpelly, the Team Hardpoint Audi in behind there, dropping a couple of Michelins onto the dirt as well. So that's Mark Miller, Andy Lally and Spencer Pumpelly. There are three names that know their way around an IMSA paddock and can point you in the right direction. Battling at the moment for 10th, 11th and 12th, Jeremy, in GT Daytona. Hang on, says Shane.
Dancing Ants just gave me a solution. The reason that Super Mario Farnbacher has been caught so rapidly by Bill Auberlen is because right in front of him, fighting to stay on the lead lap, is Paul Holton. And Paul Holton met the side of Mario Farnbacher 3 times on the straight of Mid-Ohio. So Mario is going to be being extra conservative.
Side by side across the line, and it is a battle for position in GT Daytona. Mark Miller and Andy Lally. Lally tries to go all the way around the outside at turn 2 and makes it. Mark Miller was fighting pretty hard to keep that position in the Hardpoint Acura. Significant work done by the Hardpoint team overnight after a couple of braking problems that Mark wasn't too happy with, and they've rebuilt a couple of corners on that car and seen some real improvement. But that was a lot of hard work from the Gradient, excuse me, team. Got me on it now. In the number 22 for Mark Miller. The Gradient car sitting behind them with the AudiTireCentre.com support again this weekend. So well done to the Gradient guys for putting in all the hard work in a very short weekend, Jeremy, here. As into the pit lane from second position, Ricky Taylor in the Acura.
Minutes into this stint, so it is just about on time, although we do have prototypes that have stayed out longer. So Ricky coming in before everyone else. So this is fuel and tires for Ricky Taylor, as well as a drinks bottle change. No indication whatsoever of Ricky jumping out of that car yet, at least not yet. As also into the pit lane was the number 5. That was the Mustang sampling Cadillac. Tristan Vautier out of that car. Sebastian Bourdais installed fuel and tires for them as well. Just waiting on the fuel, and now the nozzle comes out, and away goes Ricky. Good stop for the 7.
Yeah, that's at just under 90 minutes to go. So one more stop from here with about 45 to go will get him there. I reckon that's a couple of laps shy of where they would have really liked to have been. It's one full lap than they did at the start of the race, but it's going to be there or thereabouts for them by the time you take the pit in or the time spent in the pit lane out of that. So expect that car in about 40 minutes time, and here's the leadership.
Dane Cameron in again, staying aboard. No drink bottle change for Dane, though. He is still good as they are doing fuel and tires. They do a staggered pattern, not the right sides first and then the left, but the left front and the right rear are the last 2 tires to be changed on this car, just waiting on fuel. As into the pit lane comes Pipo Durrani, and he is going to be staying in the pit lane because Felipe Nasser taking over for the Whelen Engineering Cadillac. Brazilian driver hands over to Brazilian driver. Right side tires are done on that car. They run around to do the left side Michelins as they do a slightly different pattern for the crew based out of North Carolina. Tires going on now. Car comes off the air jacks, waiting on the fuel, and everything else good to go. Another perfect stop by Whelen Engineering, and now Nasser gets to go do battle.
Yeah, let's see where he comes out on the racetrack relative to the Acura that came in 1 lap sooner. Generally speaking, when you're on hot tires, doing one more lap can be beneficial. But I think the Acura is going to be tight.
It's going to be very tight. Oh, and he's got off going out. Nasser pushing too hard. Yeah. He knew how tight it was going to be. And that is a tricky little exit from the pit lane. If you've ever done this on iRacing or any of the console games, you know if you push too hard coming out of the pit lane exit, you understeer off on those new tyres into the gravel. And that is a very, very costly mistake for the 31 car.
It'll cost him a few seconds. I think the number 7 car, I think it came in a little bit earlier than he needed to, as you were alluding to, John, because he didn't need to take on an absolutely full tank of fuel. And with one less lap as well as just a little bit extra 2 or 3 litres of fuel less than he needs to take on, so make a slightly shorter stop and trying to make sure he maintains that position ahead of number 31 car, which is exactly what he has done. The other interesting note, I talked about number 10 car having overtaken number 55, and would it make ground towards number 77? Answer no. In actual fact, it was losing ground, number 77 car, during this stint. Those cars still out on the racetrack, separated now by about 9 seconds. The gap between number 77 and number 10 was down to around about 6 seconds at one stage.
And the GT Le Mans pit stops have started as well. Shea, Adam?
Last weekend, the hashtag was Van Bam, thank you, ma'am. It was Van handing over to Bam as Larry got out of the car, and Earl Bamber takes the 912 Porsche fuel and tires. That is not the one running with the damage, as Alan Prosser has been looking for us on these screen grabs, but it was a driver change for the number 3 Corvette as well. Antonio Garcia taking over for Jordan Taylor, fuel and tires for the Corvette, which was once again beaten out of the pit lane. A faster stop for the 912 Porsche than for Corvette. That's not something I say very often. Also in GTD, we had John Edwards in the 24 BMW taking over for Jesse Krohn. So driver changes in all 3 of the manufacturers throughout the pits. We have 2 of the Mazdas in. The 55, Jonathan Bomarito brought the red Mazda in. Harry Tinknell took it back out, fuel and tires. And for the 77 Mazda, this is the white one, Oliver Jarvis brought this car into the pit lane. But I believe that is the helmet of Tristan Nunez now behind the wheel. So both of the Mazda birthday boys celebrating birthdays earlier this week, getting to go out and fight to the finish.
That was a heck of a good pit stop by the Multimatic 77 team. They were done, dusted, all 4 Michelin tyres changed, driver changed. And then basically almost had time to go and make a cup of tea whilst the fuel was still going in there. The fuel in a standard stop should always be the determining factor for the stationary time, so long as you're doing everything else around the fuel going in. And remember, you can't fuel and do other work at the same time here in IMSA. So long as you get it all done before the fuel nozzle comes out, then you've lost no extra time at all. It's only if you're struggling with belts or you fumble a wheel nut that it begins to cost you the extra time. Nowhere near for Multimatic. They nailed that one, and that car was rolling out of the pit lane very, very smartly indeed. So Renger van der Zande then leads the motor race for Konica Minolta Cadillac by 17.9 seconds, still to make his stop. Now remember that in the first stint his teammate did 30 laps, or that included the warm-up laps, didn't include the warm-up laps as well, although the fuel had to be in for that. He's on his 28th lap now, and the gap is 17.5 seconds. I reckon then he's going to have to, well, I mean, where's he going to get to with this? If he can, he might be able to do another 10 minutes, maybe even another 15 minutes. Briscoe did 45 minutes. No, so he's going to do another 10 minutes, isn't he, from here, so long as the pace doesn't drop off too much. So what we're going to have
First
to do
stop was
here...
40 minutes, John. First stop was 40 minutes.
Was it 40? Okay, that must... Yeah, sorry, that was because it's the way I've got it, where my time had started when they started the formation laps. You're absolutely right. But he's doing 19s at the moment against 17s, so he's losing 2 seconds a lap on the chasing cars. So here again, the graph, Jeremy, it's a bit like following a cricket match here, isn't it? It's first innings versus first innings, second innings versus second innings. That little graph about what the run rate is doing and where the intersecting points are, that's effectively what's going on here, with 2 very different points of view and thoughts about how the number 10 car and certainly the number 6 and 7 Acuras are going to complete the 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, it is, and it's fascinating, isn't it? I love the way these strategies play out, where Felipe Nasser, having taken over from Pipo Derani and having made that mistake coming out of the pits, he's now nearly 5 seconds behind Ricky Taylor, which you'll find extremely frustrating. Renger van der Zande still running out front, but it must have been a lot of traffic on the last lap. It was a 1:21.
Oh wow!
Which was what about the slowest leader lap all the way through this race. There'd been a couple around about there, I guess, but He's certainly not running a fast pace at the moment, but he is saving a fair bit of fuel.
Correct. Lots of dancing ants in between him and where he just was, Jeremy, so you are spot on with that one.
That's a Brian Till comment. He likes to watch the dancing ants, by which he means the tracker on our timing systems, which just little. I think they look much more like M&Ms, quite frankly, just sort of moving around the track. But I know exactly what he means. So an hour and 20 minutes to go. We'll get Renger van der Zande into the next 3 or 4 laps.
Look at John, the last couple of laps, the gap between number 10 and number 6. Okay, number 6 car is on fresh tyres, number 10 on very used tyres. 17.7 seconds 2 laps ago, 14.4 seconds last lap, 12.2 seconds this lap. So that's 2.5 seconds a lap or more that the number 10 car is losing compared to the Acuras. You know, having said all that, I'm not sure they're really in a fight with the Acuras. I think the Acuras have got everybody handled again this weekend like they did last year. It was only about a tenth of a second or so in qualifying, but I think they've got this race pretty much under control unless something strange happens.
I have no, unless something strange happens. Good news for fans of LMP2 and for PR1 Matheson Motorsport. I think they're making their way back to the pit lane. They're heading through the paddock at the moment, the distinctive blue and silver car. We'll keep an eye on that for you. Just making a note that the Whelen Cadillac, the number 31 car, Felipe Nasr behind the wheel at the moment after Peepo's first 2 stints, over 50 laps, Peepo in the first 2 stints. They've sort of kept the 2 Acuras in sight, just under 3 seconds now between Nasr and Taylor in second place. Now, all right, there's a bit of a gap between Ricky Taylor and Dane Cameron, 12.5 seconds. But they are sort of keeping at least one of the Acuras, Jeremy, the second place number 7 car, keeping that car a little bit more honest.
They are indeed, and actually closed up a little bit on this last lap when Felipe Nasr just had his best lap of the race. It was at 17.2. The only car to have lapped within quicker than 1 minute 17 is the second place car now, because number 10 car is a pit stop, but the number 6 Acura, a 16.9, 17.1 for Harry Ticknell, for both Mazdas actually, and the Ricky Taylor car as well. So yeah, they're all pretty close to match in terms of ultimate pace, but the Acuras seem to be, I think, driving well within themselves this stage in the race. I mean, they haven't hit anybody else lately either, have they?
No, not since the opening laps, so you're absolutely right. 3 cars right across the track in 3 different classes as Felipe Nasr passed the Tommy Milner driven Corvette, so that was 4th in the race from 5th in GT LM, and there was a GTD car involved there as well, and that was the WeatherTech Ferrari of not of Roman D'Angelis at all, of Alessandro Balzan in 4th position as they went underneath the walkover bridge on the start-finish line. New Corvettes have been in phenomenal form this season. Really hit the ground running with this new mid-engine twin-turbo V8 C8R and took their 100th win in IMSA on North American soil, should I say. 4th of July, Saturday night, Daytona. That's an easy statistic to remember, isn't it? And they have really put the swords really to the rest of the competition. Helped in some ways. Porsche have had the pace, but haven't been able to convert those into results. Meantime, leader is in the pit. Shea Adam.
Renger van der Zande is staying aboard the glossy black Cadillac for Koenig Minolta as fuel and tires going into this car. It is never a question when they come in for a pit stop here if they will do tires, just a question of how long the stop will take all in all. That time it was 28 seconds in the box, so Renger doing a little bit of fuel saving, meaning that tires were the determining factor for when that pit stop occurred.
Yeah, that's a good run though by Renger. And as Jeremy says, he went actually a couple of laps longer than even the first stint, so he was in that car over 40 minutes on that stint. Over 40 minutes, 32 laps completed for Renger van der Zande. But as Jeremy said, maybe not racing the guys at the front. They're on a different strategy. They're looking to maximise their points for the championship. Came in this weekend leading the championship overall, Jeremy, and they will want to hold on to that lead going to Sebring in the last race of the season.
They will. Who's that? The Corvette.
The 10 car.
10 car. Yeah, absolutely 10. Yeah. I think it's a slightly interesting strategy they're pulling at this stage. I mean, they were losing 2.5-3 seconds a lap to the two Acuras towards the end of that stint. Hard to imagine how that's going to really pay out in their favour. They are going to have significantly fresher tyres for the last stint, certainly, but I don't think that's going to be enough to overcome enough of the deficit. They're going to find themselves back now in the 6th position and a fair way behind both of the Mazdas. One of which, by the way, Harry Ticknell was just set a new fastest lap of the race last time around, 1 minute 16.817, which is now, that's about a 10.5 away from what Pablo Montoya's race lap record set last year.
At IMSA Radio on Twitter, if you want to get in touch with us. You can take us with you in the US on Sirius 113 XM202 this weekend. All of the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship races, including our season finale, the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, presented by Advance Auto Parts, in a couple of weeks' time on Sirius XM. Thank you for the loan of your airwaves. And of course, around the world, free and uninterrupted on RS2, part of the Radio Show Limited network of channels. That's the home for IMSA Radio. Every single hour of every single day of the year, even when you get an extra hour, like you in the States got last night when the clocks went back. GTD pit stops starting. This is an hour and 14 minutes away from the end of the race. That, I think, is a little too far to go at the end, but we have the Compass McLaren in share, Adam.
And it's been just about 40 minutes since Paul Holton last got into this car in the pit lane, and he has been struggling out there. Actually went down a lap to the leaders and was doing similar times to Mario and Bill at one stage, but Paul needing new tires and fuel for his McLaren. Fuel nozzle comes out and away goes the Compass McLaren. Now the good news is they had a very easy entrance into their pit box, being the second one on the pit lane. The bad news, they've got a long time to sit on the limiter now.
Meantime, the second place Ricky Taylor Acura in traffic and trying to put a lap on Sebastian Bourdais coming out of the final corner. Now this is interesting because he's now between two Cadillacs across the line, heading up over the brow, and Felipe Nasser right there going down into the first corner, goes round the outside, might try the cutback coming through. They're going past the Gradient NSX at the moment. This is all very, very tight indeed. Everybody needs to keep their wits about them. Great driving by Martin Miller, who just held the racing line, allowed the prototypes to go by. Exactly the right thing to do. Through turn 4, and Sebastian Bourdais in 5th position then, trying to stay on the lead lap from the second place car. So Cameron must have already gone through, of course.
Oh yeah, he's been lapped for quite a while, number 5 car.
So down into, or up rather, to the corkscrew. And is this the opportunity for Nasser? We said that in the Whelan car they were keeping the second place Acura Honest. This is a real opportunity here, Jeremy, and that's where you've got to pounce. Use the traffic when you can. Pick your battles, is what we said in the Porsche Keys to the Race. Well, this is the battle right here, right now, for a bit of track position and second place on the timing and scoring monitor.
Very much so, and I think there's no question Sebastian Bourdais is not going to make life easy for the Acura when it catches up again. Bourdais has been able to put a bit of distance between himself and the pair battling for second and third during that lap when he got past some slower traffic, but it's not going to be long, I think, before Ricky Taylor is going to be right with Bourdais again, looking to make that pass, but Bourdais won't make it easy, and certainly Felipe Nasr will be hoping that will give him an opportunity to dive down the inside. I thought on the previous lap when it came down the Mario Andretti hairpin, it looked to me like Bourdais was kind of trying to box out a little bit the Acura, but there was too much traffic around there. He couldn't really do anything too blatant. No, I think Bourdais' class in that any case, of course. Yeah. Certainly people driving for a split second. Felipe Nasr for a split second thought he might have had an opportunity to make a pass on the Acura. It didn't happen.
I didn't ask you this, Shea, and so I apologise for dropping it on you now. Did the number 7 change its nose after that significant impact with the lead Corvette earlier on? Oh, here's the pass for position on the Mustang sampling Cadillac down in the final corner with the same Corvette involved as well that the Acura ran into earlier in the race when it took the dive planes off. I didn't see the nose change, I don't think, at the pit stop, so there may still be some dive planes on the front of that car.
There was no nose change and the dive planes are still missing, so there's a little bit less orange on the left front of the number 7 Acura Team Penske than you would be used to seeing.
That's for Corey G, who tweeted in at IMSA Radio a few minutes ago. Well, that's pretty impressive pace then, and Jeremy, that could well be part of the issue then that Ricky Taylor has got, that he's not got the full aerodynamic complement on the front end of that car. And my goodness, on a surface that's this slick, you absolutely need to know that the car's going to turn in as he muscles his way past the Porsche number 912, second place in GTLM of Earl Bamber, going into the corkscrew. He knows how important this is right now, and so does Felipe Nasr. They're charging through traffic.
Yeah, wasn't a lot of room between the Porsche and the Acura there, was there?
None at all.
Pretty tight. I was a bit surprised that Bourdais didn't make life more difficult for Ricky Taylor when he came down to turn 11 last time around, but now he's been left behind by both of those two, and Ricky Taylor has used that to his advantage. He's pulled away again, a little bit of a breathing space now over Felipe Nasr.
Well, how close was it then? Coming up the Bobby Rahal straight, there was a touch. That's how close it was.
I don't think Makovic even saw him coming. Oh, it wasn't Makovic, excuse me. It was
Earl Bamber. It's Bamber in second place, 17.5 seconds off the leading class. And the prototype had to take to the curb and the dirt to make the pass. I know there's a big speed differential there, but you're taking chances. That, again, just underlines for me, Jeremy, how important it is at the moment for Ricky Taylor to keep his pace up, as Bill Oberlin has come in out of second position in GT Daytona. We'll get back to that battle for second overall in a moment. Shea?
Fuel and tires for Bill Oberlin. And what happened the last time that he didn't drive in 2 races on a single weekend? Well, that was at the Charlotte Roval, and they came away with a commanding win from that one. So Turner Motorsport hoping that by keeping Bill's powder a little bit more dry, by him not running in the GS car yesterday from unfortunate circumstances way out of his control, he might just be able to take out all that anger and rage on track. He will emerge from the pit lane further down, possibly outside of the top 10, but he knows how to climb his way back up, particularly in his home state.
Well, and that is a fast car, there's no doubt. That is a very fast car indeed. Now, what happens at the front of the field with Farnbacher, Super Mario, now 22 seconds ahead of another Acura, so it's 86 from 57. And to answer your question, Bill has dropped down, Shea, to 7th in class at the moment, but he's just ahead of Lawson Aschenbach, who's 3 seconds ahead of Jack Hawksworth. So that is a heck of a scrap that's going on there for 7th, 8th and 9th, as Oberlin has pitted. And that was 45 minutes for Bill Oberlin. Shea, you've got the leader in class in now.
Super Mario Farbacher into the pit lane in the 86 MSR Acura. Following him in is the team car, Alvaro Parent, the number 57 for Heinricher Racing. This is the best performance we've seen out of that 57 car all year long. Also coming in, Alessandro Balzan in the 63 Scuderia Corse Ferrari. He'll be happy because the Raiders won. No spoilers in football, but gotta give that to him. He'll hear it over the loudspeaker. Fuel and tires for all of the GTD cars in the pit lane now, as I should be getting Fred Macavecchi. You know, every year I talk to Fred at the banquet and I think how nice he is and how much of a nice guy he is. And now I'm starting to think he doesn't like me because he hasn't come to the pit lane in more than an hour. This Porsche is due, the 911. I'm keeping my eyes out for it.
This is a very, very good run indeed. A 44th lap that Macavecchi is on at the moment. Look at the time that we have left, dear listener and viewer. 1 hour and 5 minutes. Oof. I tell you, this is very interesting indeed for him. Can he get somewhere close to the hour mark and get that car to the end without another stop? That would be huge if he can do that. Fred will be getting out of that car and Nick Tandy will be getting in. Nick, who corksed and I say this, unusually ailing Porsche home in the 24 hours at Spa recently and sealed the win. He was paired or tripled up there with Earl Bamber and Lawrence Van Teur. So Nick Tandy will be chomping at the bit. Only one Tamiya model, I'm told, has arrived whilst Nick has been in California, and Brittany's hidden it away. And he's not going to get it unless he wins, I reckon. That's me saying that. He'd have to go 66, 65, 66 minutes to be able to get to the end of the race. God heavens. Well, he's done over an hour now. So if he can get one, maybe two more laps, it's going to be pretty close. The question will be, how fast will Tandy be able to drive, Jeremy? Oh, very close in the pit lane. Oh. Right Porsche and the heart of racing, Aston, as they have to go into single file to go through the RFID chip readers, not to check their shopping out, so that the Michelin tyres get read as they go through. There's technology. They are effectively smart tyres now with the chips in them. That was a brilliant stop, Shea. I think the Porsche came in behind the Aston, didn't it?
It was Roman DeAngelis who led the last lap and led Patrick Long into the pit lane. But out of the pit lane, Patrick Long leads Roman DeAngelis. A great stop by Wright Motorsports.
Macavecchi's in. So that is a 45 lap stint, and he's been out for just over 1 hour and 3 minutes. He'll get out of the car now. We have 1 hour and 3 minutes to go. Oh my goodness me. Are they rolling the dice, Jeremy Shaw? How quick can Tandy drive if he's going to get to the end? If he does the same stint that Macavecchi's just done, then he's going to be somewhere near the checkered flag, but somewhere near the checkered flag might not be good enough. Fuel still going in. And away they go. That was a pretty neat stop, Shea. Full service.
It was very indicative of the body language from the mechanics on the 911 Porsche, that they understand how important this stop is and how perfect it had to be. Nick Tandy's total pit delta time was, well, he spent 1 minute and 45 seconds in the pits total throughout the course of this race. Comparing that to the other cars who have done their multiple stops, he's done about 10 seconds longer in the pit lane than anyone else, but also he's burned a lot more fuel than the other guys that he's racing against.
Yeah, but don't forget, Shea, if he can't get to the end from here, if he can replicate the amount of time that Macavecchi's just done, he's got no stop. He has no stop to do, and everybody else has got a full stop to do, or at least a splash at the end. because Makoviecki did an hour and 3 in that car. There was an hour and just 2 to go. It's tight. That's a big roll of the dice for me, particularly if you're under pressure at the end and you're burning fuel.
But the other thing too is that if, say there's a caution and all the GTLM cars need to come in, the 911 is going to need to take less fuel. And
it stays
because
out. It doesn't need any fuel. I don't think if there's a caution, he doesn't need fuel.
Well, but the limiting factor in this race isn't fuel, it's tires. And the 911, by going out and qualifying and only doing 4 laps on their tires, they have, in effect, an extra set, whereas everybody else has used up an extra set. So Tandy stands better than everyone else tire-wise.
So he's got a brand new set on at the end. Okay.
Correct.
I still think, Jeremy, it's a massive roll of the dice if they think they're going to do another hour and 3 run, as Makoviecki has just done. But in fairness, Fred Makowiecki's times, Jeremy, were pretty impressive. They were pretty consistent. Jeremy?
Yes, it was. Yeah, he was running fine up there. I think pretty much under control. The gap from first and second between the two Porsches came down maybe a little bit, but I don't think there was any problems there. I think your number 912 car is running to a 3-stop, the number 911 to a 2-stop. So yeah, I don't think that should be too difficult at all for them to make it the same amount of thing from the end. Yeah, exactly.
Split strategy for the two.
And again, if there's a caution, they ran an hour and 3 minutes on the last stint. They've got an hour and 2 minutes to go, so that should be no problem. If there's a caution, then absolutely no problem.
New fastest lap of the GT Daytona race, and it goes to Mark Miller for Gradient Racing, sitting in 12th at the moment, but there's a really quite packed little midfield there, and they've all still got one more stop to go. As I said, the Gradient guys did a lot of work overnight, rebuilt a couple of corners on the car after some brake issues, or what they thought was brake issues. They tell me it's solved, and they're feeling very confident about how that car is going. Till Bechtelsheimer did the first stint, and even though the tyres were going away, his experience with older cars in classic racing meant he wasn't too worried about the cars moving around, and we saw how confident he was in very bad conditions up at Charlotte. So Mark Miller now with the fastest lap for a moment at least. Lawson Aschenbach for Riley Motorsports just goes a tiny little bit quicker. 1:25.922, 1:25.505, so a couple of 3/10, nearly 4/10 quicker from the Riley Motorsports number 74 car that he shares with Gart Robinson. Well, that's shaping up quite nicely, and again, just scrolling through the strategy, pretty much everybody is on the same strategy in GTD except for the Team Hardpoint car, where Spencer Pumpelly has yet to make the pit stop on this cycle. So Spencer Pumpelly, sitting in 7th position at the moment, has only made 1 pit stop. Everyone around him has made at least 2 pit stops in GTD. And now, what does that mean for Spencer? 52 minutes. How much further can he go? Because there's only 58 minutes left in the race. So it's not that long before Pumpelly could potentially go to the end with just 1 stop further, with just the next stop that he's due. Therefore,
these are all making their last stops now, John, I think.
Yeah.
All the GTD cars.
Yeah. 36, 37 laps. Yeah, absolutely. 52 minutes. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, actually. I think it's a bit tighter than we think for these. I think Pumpelly, if he goes another lap or 2, is in the best position. I'm not sure everybody else, Jeremy, can get there without a wee splash or a little bit of yellow to help them.
Okay.
I'm looking at Pumpelly's done a 37 lap stint, which is about 55 minutes so far. I can't see anybody else who's done any more than that. Most of them have done 33, 34, 35, 36 in the case of the T-Bell-In Vassar-Sullivan car. That's 52 minutes, and he stopped just a lap ago, so he's going to be close, also close. But again, as we said earlier, close to the checkered flag. He's not the checkered flag. And here, although it's downhill, Jeremy, from the corkscrew, it's not downhill all the way to the line, is it? There's a significant proportion of that front straight that goes down through a dip and then climbs again to the checkered flag, which is near the walkover bridge.
Yeah, turn 11 is the lowest point on the racetrack, and from there to the start-finish line, and that's the slowest corner on the track as well, is that final corner. And so you're accelerating from there uphill, as you say, all the way to the start-finish line. So yeah, you're not going to coast up that hill. You can coast all the way down the last corner, but you're very unlikely to be able to coast around that last corner and still reach the finish line. You're absolutely right.
That's Jeremy Short, who's with me, John Hindhaugh, in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Inside the last hour of the race now, with the final pieces of strategy still to fall into place, just like that last bit of blue sky that you've been trying to fit in your jigsaw, all still to happen. We've got pit stops at the front end of the field coming shortly for the DPIs, within a couple of laps for the two Acura Team Penske cars. And Dane Cameron is a lap better off on fuel. But they're not going to be anywhere near going to the end, so they, however, are now in the window to do it on 2 more stops, because they can do 32, 33 minutes, which is what they have been doing. They've done as much as 35 earlier on in the race. And Shea Adam has news of race control pointing the fickle finger of fate at a particular car, that's a significant car.
It is the leader. Dane Cameron behind the wheel has been out of the pits for 33 minutes, but a warning has just been issued to that car. How you blend back on the racetrack across the pit blend line has been an area of contention at this track for quite some time, but right now, flaring back up, Dane has gotten a warning for the last time that he blended back out, and this was a warning that has had penalties issued in the form of a drive-through as recently as full practice 2 on Friday.
Yes, there is a. I have to explain that as well. The pit lane runs alongside the start-finish straight, and although the pit lane speed limit is off, allowed to be taken off around about the walkover bridge, the pit lane continues around a hairpin and then rejoins. Now, there's a couple of ways you can fall foul of the pit lane exit. Is that as you drive out of what we would think of the pit lane, there's a bit of green painted tarmac to your right hand side, and you can't go into that because that is right alongside the very fast start finish straight. Then you've got to stay to the left hand side of the blend line when you exit from the pit exit lane itself at the exit of turn 2. So there's 2 ways you can fall foul of this, and it's about staying, again, we talked about in our Porsche Keys to Race, staying between the white lines. Well, that is on the exit of the pit lane just as much as it is on the track, but it will be race control who will give you the grief rather than the sandy, loamy soil around the hard standing of the racetrack here. Gap at the front of the field, 14.5 seconds. Dane Cameron leads, and due in maybe at the end of this lap, actually, Jeremy. It's about that time.
Is it okay? Fine. I
7th lap. Ricky
right.
Taylor's on his 28th at the moment. They did 27 and 28 lap stints last time around, so this lap on the next one, I would have said, it will put them in the window to get the end with 1 more stop. Bourdais should be the first in. He's been out now for 37 minutes in the number 5 car. He's on lap 29. So the track temperature, and this may be a deciding factor here. We've been talking about this all day, about whether it's people are fuel limited or tyre stroke grip limited. The track temperature that was 47 Celsius is now down to 30 Celsius. That may well be being taken in the shade, but even so, that's an extraordinary drop from earlier on in the race, and that will be helping the performance longevity of the Michelin tyres, Jeremy. That might make them decide to stay out a couple or 3 laps longer.
Yeah, certainly they will be. They will feel like they have more grip at this stage in the race than they had earlier on, no question. And particularly going through the section up by the corkscrew, there's a fair amount of shadow there across the racetrack that really wasn't so much earlier on. So yes, there's various helping factors for the teams in the closing stages of the race.
51 minutes to the end of the race, although as we saw in the Michelin Pilot Challenge yesterday, it may well go another minute or so longer than that, because it all depends at what time the leading car crosses the line to start its white flag lap. And if there's more than about a minute and 19, a minute and 20 seconds, let's say there's about a minute and 21, then there'll be another lap. You won't get the white flag that time around. And the problem is, for the other categories, is you're not in control of that. It's only the DPI leader of the race that knows for absolutely certain when they're going to come to the line. So 14.5 seconds the lead, then 6 seconds from the second Acura to the first of the Cadillacs, then the 2 Mazdas, another 13 seconds back for Nunez in the 77, and his teammate 3 seconds further back. That's your top 5, 37 seconds between them.
Yeah, and the gap between the number 31 car...
Oh, Jeremy, one moment. Off the circuit and already behind the wall. I think that's the 52 that did come back out again. Simon Trummer was driving the PR1 Matheson Motorsports. He's just dived off the track at turn 10 and gone straight into the paddock. Sorry to interrupt you. I thought that was somebody having an incident, but I think that may have been a planned exit stage left there. Sorry, the 2 Mazdas, Jeremy, go ahead, 4th and 5th.
Yeah, the 2 Mazdas, number 77 car is losing a fair bit of ground to number 31 Wheel and Engineering Cadillac ahead of it, but Harry Tickler is definitely closing in on Tristan Nunez. We talked about it maybe 10 laps ago that Harry Tickler set a new fastest lap of the race in number 55 car. He's now within a couple of seconds or so of the 4th place car, so we could consider we have a battle between those 2 Mazdas pretty soon now, as we're getting fairly close to the 2 pit stops.
Yeah, with just under 50 minutes to go. Shea Adam has just put a message on our broadcast chat, which I am not going to read, and I'll tell you what it was at the end of the race, because I'm not going to read that out at the moment, because I've been caught out too many times in the past. 48 minutes to go on the penultimate race of the season, and the last of our short races, the sprint season, coming to an end for GT Daytona, and we'll round off the Michelin Endurance Cup a couple of weeks' time at Sebring International Raceway, flag to flag coverage here on IMSA Radio, of course. Plenty of racing still to come then for IMSA in this crazy season that's been, well, in some ways with the calendar turned upside down, but thank goodness we have had some racing. The business of racing is continuing, and that allows the sport of racing to continue. Super important. John Doonan and the rest of the team at Daytona, plus all of the tracks and sponsors and teams and the hundreds of people that it takes to get a race meeting on. Really been impressive what we've seen in these most difficult of situations this year. pushing on into the middle of November with the substantive season. Normally we have the Michelin Encore around about the time we'll be at Sebring International for the Mobile 12 Hours of Sebring. And a note, by the way, that IMSA will be being involved in another 24-hour race next year at Sebring in 2021 in the middle of November with Creventic, the Dutch organisers behind the 24-hour series, in partnership with IMSA for the 24 Hours of Sebring. That is endurance. Right, GT Le Mans pit stops, and this will be the last pit stops for the cars coming in now. Shea Adam in from the lead, Earl Bamber.
Fuel and tires for Earl as the tire change actually finished and the car dropped off the jacks and rolled away, the fuel nozzle coming out. So that was a tire stop, determined how long the fuel was, and not the other way around, which is typically what we see on these race weekends. The tires really are limiting everything as far as pit stops are concerned.
So now the question in that category is what happens with Nick Tandy, and will he be able to stretch that VP Racing fuel all the way to the end of the race? An hour and 3 minutes when he came out of the pits, or a little bit under that actually, but they had done an hour and 3 minute stint. Now as everyone ahead stops, he will cycle back to the front of the field. He's already in 4th position. Earl Bamber gets out. Now the question is, they wouldn't have had to put that much fuel in Earl Bamber's car, so he may yet have some kind of advantage over the Tandy car. We'll have to see how that plays out, as in now for his last stop comes the number 3 Antonio Garcia driven Corvette ship.
And just leaving ahead of him was John Edwards, fuel and tires for the black BMW. That's the 24 one, but the yellow Corvette comes in, hits its marks, and this too should be a stop determined by how quickly the tire change can go on. But good news, Corvette Racing have won the pit stop competition many times over many years in the American Le Mans Series. They are some of the best in the biz. Car drops off the air jacks, and they are doing a little bit more fuel for Antonio, as Moro has to lift the camera up and out of the way. You can always tell it's him by the distinct camera style. And also into the pit lane, we had Felipe Nasr. It was fuel and tires for him as well, but the leader has come in. All right, Dane Cameron got a warning the last time he left the pit lane with the pit blend line, so we need to keep an eye on him when he goes back out on the circuit. But first, fuel and tires, as also into the pit lane, the sister car, that's the number 7. It will be fuel and tires for Ricky Taylor as well. And already in and out. Wow, great stop for the 77 Mazda as they did fuel and tires for Tristan Nunez.
44 minutes remaining, just under. Remember, the 2 Acuras don't pit at the same part of the pit lane. They entered effectively as 2 separate teams. The longest Acura stint so far was that last one by Ricky Taylor at 44 minutes and 27 seconds. So they're right in the window now to go to the end of the race. They've worked their strategy back from the end to where they were and where they had to be. Car is down and away, filled up with VP fuel and 4 new Michelin tyres. So now the stagger unwinds, Jeremy, and we will see what they've got left to the end of the race.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a stretch there. They're going to be saving fuel as much as they can through all the way through this final stint. But I believe this should be about right for them. I think they came in for their first stop a little bit earlier than I had originally anticipated, but I think now they can. It's going to be a stretch to get to the end. You're absolutely right, but I think I'm assuming they can. It'll kind of depend on what sort of pace they're getting and whether they're under any pressure, because the race leader came in with a good 15-second margin between the 2 Acuras. Number 31, Whelen Engineering Cadillac had slipped back about 7 seconds before the round of pit stops, having been monstering the rear end of the number 7 car through the beginning of that last stint.
So Harry Tinknell leads for Mazda at the moment, but owes us a pit stop. Hearing from the GTD teams that their tyre wear was much better in that middle stint as the track temperature continues to fall. Air temperature now dropping as well, down to 25 Celsius. with the track temperature now under 30 Celsius. So that reduction in the track temperature has helped the longevity and the performance potential of the Michelin tyres, and they believe they'll be good to the end of the race on the fuel that they have, those that have already made their stop. Shay, you've got the Cadillac number 10 in for its last pit stop.
Renger van der Zande getting an additional drinks bottle in the car and being handed a water bottle with a straw, good and old-fashioned, to try and give him a little bit of extra fluid as he takes on 4 new tires and a whole lot more fuel. The glossy black Cadillac is back out, but we've had the number 85, that's the banana boat, that was in the pit lane for a little bit too long for my liking. Steven Simpson bringing the car in and taking it back out, already 2 laps down.
Renger van der Zande pitting that car early, didn't need to come in for fuel, had a good 6, maybe 7 laps of fuel left in that car, but he's in the window, so they've put as much as they needed to get to the end and have sent them. They're trying to get a little bit of track position, but as we've noted before, I don't think they're racing at the very sharp end of the field, but they are out now and fueled to the end of the race, as in from the lead comes Harry Tincknell. Jeremy?
Yeah, and this 40 minutes to go in this race now for the number 55 car. Has been that was a good stint from Harry Tincknell. He's whittled the gap down to the car ahead of him, which is the sister car, number 77 Mazda, and he's managed to eke out an extra 3 laps on that tank of fuel as well. So he'll require less fuel saved for him in the final stint of this motor race.
So the GT Le Mans pit stops are all done now. And maybe Conor De Filippi still has to pit. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, maybe not actually. So he's only done a 2-stop race. Tandy's only... Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
So the number 3 car has made its 3rd stop. Okay.
Yeah.
4 minutes ago.
Yeah. A couple of laps ago, yeah. So Bamber leads in the Porsche from Garcia and then Tandy, and they are 15 seconds apart, those top 3. Now, Tandy is going to go to the end with 1 fewer pit stops than the cars in front, but they have that last pit stop that they needed far less fuel in the car, so they weren't standing still perhaps as long as Tandy was when you add his 2, or that car's 2 longer pit stops together, where they had to fill the car absolutely to the brim. But that's going to be a race to the end. 18 seconds in total than the 911 than the 912, and the gap between them is 15 seconds. So there is the question. So when we're talking about all this strategy, when we're talking the Porsche keys to the race, what about your fuel and tyres? How do you do it? Remember, we were talking in Michelin Countdown to Green and here in the start of the race about the most efficient way to clock through 2 hours and 40 minutes. And sometimes being able to make that extra pit stop, spend a little less time on each of those pit stops. Jeremy was talking about dividing the race up into manageable chunks. You get better tyre wear and therefore more performance. So your average lap times within those shorter stints probably a little bit better. Yes, you've had to come down the pit lane, but in terms of your stationary time, you're not standing still for quite as much time because you're not having to put so much fuel in each time. It's the tyres again that have decided this. So even with the temperatures coming down, it has been the tyre wear, whichever way you cut it, that has decided this race in GT-LM. Question for me now, Jeremy, is Bamber, Garcia, Tandy, how hard can they all fight? Because we know that Tandy put a brand new set of tyres on to get to the end of the race.
Yeah, so yeah, that could be certainly could be crucial for the number 911 team with those fresh tyres. Have to watch those gaps. At the moment, it was about 6 seconds between the first 2, number 912 and the number 3, and we seem to see. I'm just looking to see how they fared relative to each other through the opening stints of the race. Of course, number 3 and number 912 both made their first pit stops very early in the race, which made it kind of difficult to see. But certainly the Porsche tends to be a little bit lighter on its tyres than the Corvette.
So then, coming down to the last half an hour of racing, and now we see the battles out on the track. Now we understand what some of the strategy has been played out under a little bit of cloud now as the temperature continues to drop in the air and on the track. And a battle out on the circuit for position in GTD at the moment is for 5th. Pat Long, Right Motorsports, knows this area very well indeed. Roman De Angelis for Harter Racing Team in the Astons, just 3/10 behind. And the pair of them are only a second behind Alessandro Balzan for Scuderia Corsa and the Ferrari. He's only 3.5 seconds behind a podium spot. That's Alvaro Parent for the Acura NSX number 57. At the front of the field in GTD, Farnbacher and Bill Oberlin, 1.2 seconds between those two. So there are still significant positional changes that could, possibly will, happen before the end of the race. As Riley checks in for the first time in the race with 35 minutes to go, just getting his driving time in there, I think, before the checkered flag. At the front of the field, 12 seconds is the gap between Din Cameron and Ricky Taylor. Then 5 seconds between those two Acuras and Felipe Nasr, who's got 14 seconds from the Whelen Engineering Racing Cadillac, the number 31, the red and white car, back to Tristan Nunez in the white Mazda Motorsports DPI. And his teammate is another 7 seconds further back in the dark soul red crystal Mazda Motorsports DPI. Then the championship leader, another 8 seconds further back in 6th spot. That's how they stand at the moment with spot on 35 minutes to go. Small margins here, small margins, and I'm just looking at some average lap times and see how things play out. And there's really not much to pick between all of the top prototypes. It's a couple of tenths here, 3 tenths there, but that's every lap, Jeremy, and we're getting on for, in fact, we're over 90 laps completed now. And now I will say what I wasn't going to say earlier on. In a full green flag race, you see these tiny little performance differences from cars, from drivers, just how they handle the traffic. That adds up to the sort of gaps that we've just been talking about, and that's the fascination for me of endurance racing.
Yeah, agreed. And watching particularly the battles in GTD, they've been staying pretty constant. Like the gap between first and second between the number 86 car, Mario Farnbach, and Bill Oberlin, we saw in the first stint it came down to about even less than just around about a second at one stage. Then it stretched out again to about 6. It's now down to just less than a couple after we're now 15 laps into this last stint of the race for them. And that gap remained pretty much the same. Similar gap back to Alvaro Parent in 3rd position. Actually, that stretched out a bit to Parent. But then the rest of that battle between Balzan, Patrick Long, and Roman De Angelis, they've been running together all the way together since that last round of pit stops. So there's so little to choose between them, and it's the gaps that were made early on in the race that have proved decisive.
Checkered flag in somewhere around about 33 minutes time, maybe a little more. Big red number 1 on the side of the number 6 car as it comes across the line now. And whilst that will be the end of the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship race this Sunday afternoon, it will start post-race tech. Michelin post-race tech, where you drive the agenda. At IMSA Radio, hashtag Michelin PRT. Questions, points arising, things that you've noticed, whatever you want us to talk about after the race, that is up to you. You drive the editorial content of Michelin post-race tech, coming up straight after the race, exclusively live on RS2 IMSA Radio. Realise it's getting late into a Sunday evening over in Europe, coming up to 11:15 in the UK, now further on in Central Europe. So we're going to be heading towards midnight and beyond. But like to hear your thoughts on this race so far and what might happen in the next 30 minutes or so. Hashtag Michelin PRT at IMSA Radio, please. And we'll keep an eye on the Radio Show Limited Listeners Collective on Facebook as well, and get some of your comments from there if you're not part of the Twitterati. And I can honestly understand why anybody's staying away from social media at the moment, or muting several channels. But when racing's on, perhaps we've done something to uplift you just a wee bit. Well, this has been another impressive performance at the front of the field for Acura Team Penske. This is, for the moment at least, their last hurrah at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the IMSA Championship, as they'll be bowing out at the end of the year of their association with Acura. The cars get passed on to two other teams, MSR and WTR, Wayne Taylor Racing and Mayer Shank Racing. Meantime, the battle's down the field. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Just very quickly, while you're talking about that, John, on that same subject, I've noticed the gap between first and second has come down significantly over the last few laps. It was around about 15 seconds, and for a long time it was 13, 14, 16, 17 seconds. All of a sudden, it's less than half of that, just 7 seconds between the first two. And I'm wondering whether we might see some team orders coming into play here, because if you look at the championship reckoning, Elio Castroneves and Ricky Taylor are running second right now, and they are 8 points behind Ryan Briscoe and Arango van der Zande in the championship. They're only running in the 6th position right now. So if the number 7 car was to go past the number 6 car, that would put them in really good shape going into Sebring and the championship finale.
Yeah, and there's no Cadillacs ahead of the number 10. Not that they have any teammates. It is a singleton team, but there's no other Cadillacs that could even help the number 10's points paying position. New fastest lap starting to come in as people find some open racetrack and get a clear 2.25 mile run around the circuit here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Tom Milner's just put the fastest lap in for Chevy Corvette and the number 4 car in GT Le Mans, 1:22.5. And Harry Tinknell is winding up the 4-cylinder turbocharged Mazda motor in the Multimatic DPI, 1:16.777. Paul Holton just back into the pits for the second time in too short a time, and in fact has just gone behind the wall. So still drama to play out here, including in the battle between Pat Long and Roman De Angelis, two drivers who have both had associations with Porsche. Roman De Angelis very successful in the Porsche Challenge category, which for 2021 will see a brand new North American Carrera Cup with the new 992 Cup cars on Michelin tyres. Somewhere between 15 and 20 of those cars, plus a grandfathered class for the current 992 Gen 2 cars, Pro-Am, rookie, and a young driver academy as well, effectively, for the US for 2021. 8 venues, 16 races, and the new 992 Cup car. Can't wait for that. At the moment, Long and De Angelis battling over 5th and 6th position for Wright Motorsports Porsche and Heart of Racing Aston Martin Vantage GT3. Just a couple of seconds behind Alessandro Balzan. They sort of holding their position at the moment, give or take, depending on traffic.
Yeah, the Ferrari's actually pulled away just a little bit over from Patrick Long, who's still being monstered, well, right now by the Corvette, but also by the Aston Martin, which was right behind the Corvette as well, as the Corvette nips down the inside, puts another lap on the GTD Porsche at turn 11. But certainly De Angelis, he's every bit as quick as Patrick Long, and Alessandro Balzan all of a sudden has stretched out to a couple of seconds over the Porsche and the Aston.
So under the half an hour to go. Blue skies, a little bit of cloud, but still a beautiful afternoon, as it has been since the drop of the green flag some 2.25 hours ago, and still at the front of the field. Dane Cameron, whose lead, as Jeremy noted, has dropped down. Another new fastest lap of the race, and it is by the championship leader, Renger van der Zande, down to a 16.674 now. He's 10 seconds away from Harry Tincknell, who's only 3/4 of a second away from his teammate in 4th place, Tristan Nunez. 4th, 5th and 6th then, separated by only 10 seconds with still half an hour to go.
See that one coming, I must admit. Number 10 car, quite a long way into its, 10 laps into its stint, so the fuel burning off a little bit, and Renger van der Zande found a good pace there. He's not really closing the gap to the number 55 car that's ahead of him, because Harry's to the fastest lap of the race just a couple of laps ago, so there's still 10 seconds between that pair. But once again, as we saw in the last stint, the second of the Mazdas, number 55 car, closing in on the number 77, and a ditto at the front of the field. The two Penske's now a little bit further apart on that lap than the previous one, but still with 25 minutes remaining in this race. That's 100 laps completed for a race leader, Dane Cameron,
who at the moment has a bit of clear track ahead of him as he heads towards and through turn 5, already up towards turn 6, and his teammate continues, Ricky Taylor, to chase him down. They're both on the same part of the run up to the corkscrew, Bobby Rahal straight. It's been, well, that was a better last lap from Dane Cameron. He's been down in the 19s and 20s. It was an 18.2 last time around. Can't be worried about, well, hang on. I was going to say they can't be worried about fuel.
Oh yeah, no, it was 44 minutes when about 44 minutes when they came into the pits. That's a long stint.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
But all of the prototype cars, the number 55 car is best placed amongst the DPI cars. That came in with 40 minutes to go. That was the last of the cars to make its, we presume, final pit stop. I mean, and Renger van der Zande is only 1 lap worse off than Harry Tincknell, and he's charging at the moment as well. So this again, if the slide rules, Jeremy, are slightly out, or there's been a wrong button press. Oh, full course yellow, and the drama continues. Full course yellow. We've got some debris on the front straight. A very, very orange dive plane. That's a Penske dive plane, is it not?
It looks like one.
Oh my goodness me. Just when we were wondering whether the Penske cars would need to stop again, is it slightly more red even than that? But this is a full course yellow. This will close up the whole field. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary.
And right before the yellow came out, by the way, the two Mazdas did exchange positions. Let's have a look, see what happens. Yeah, there is a change between the two Mazdas.
Is it Mazda bits then? Yes, it is Mazda bits.
Off the 77.
77 dive plane. Unless that's picked up one of the bits of the Penske that fell off when it hit the back of the.
I think you're right, John.
I think that's what that was, because I don't see where that came off the 77 car. I stand to be corrected, but we'll have a look at the 77 car when it comes through. Exit of turn 11 we're talking about, onto the front straight. This packs everybody up. And we're going to have a dash to the end of the race. So fuel issues at the front of the field, Jeremy, have just, pardon the phraseology, have just evaporated. The fuel hasn't, but the worries have. Everybody now goes to full rich. I'm not sure that helps anybody sitting in behind the Acura team Penske's, but Felipe Nasr is not backward in going forward, and that means he gets a crack on the restart of both Ricky Taylor and Dane Cameron. Ricky Taylor's car still missing front dive planes on the left-hand side after the earlier incident with the Corvette. This is a short yellow, so the pits will not open. The pits will not open.
Within the final half hour of the race.
Correct. This also closes up the GT Daytona battle, of course. Bamber, Garcia, Tandy and Milner. I think there's some cars behind, but there'll be no, in between those cars, so there'll be no wave buys here and no pass around rather. But there will be a DPI class split, so that will at least get all of the DPIs. The top 8 cars line astern, with Stephen Simpson in 8th position, ahead of the GT-LMs.
But what they don't do, of course, is a GT-LM GTD split, which is what caused all the drama at Le Mans. That's a rule I want to see changed.
I agree.
For the future. Even if it takes it shouldn't really take any longer to get that all accomplished, but it's certainly really dangerous, or can be.
Yeah, particularly when the people who are trapped inside someone else's battle or in their own battle, and you're coming towards an end of a race, Jeremy, and you can understand people saying, well, I'm not actually just going to pull over and let these guys go because I've got Dave Miggins behind me, and you know how quick Dave Miggins is, on a restart, and so it's always going to be a little bit potentially untidy. So once we get behind the safety car, we will get one of our fabulous volunteer corner workers, marshals, out onto the track to pick up that dive plane. I still haven't seen the front of the 77 car share, and I'm not sure if you've been able to pick that up, but I think from where that bit of car came from, it could well still be a Penske dive plane that they lost earlier on. They got
you just chuck it out the window.
Well, no, I don't think so. That's very NASCAR, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Very NASCAR. Yeah.
Entire motorsport park with the white livery on it. I don't see any orange on that car anywhere. No. And to be honest, the little bit of red that's on the car is more soul red than anything else. So I think you're right. I think that's a ramification of the contact from very early on in the race with the Penske.
Now, bear in mind, we're seeing this on TV pictures, and thanks, by the way, as ever, to Jake and the team at Charlotte for making sure we do see all the way around the track. My first instinct was that was Penske ready orange, and now that I've seen the shapes of the dive planes on the front of that car, I'm even more absolutely sure now that is the case. Coming back to green flag, just under 19 minutes to go. The top 8 are together, and 6 of those are on the lead lap as we come back to green for the dash to the end of the race for the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship. Green flag is in the air. Good job, Tony, in waving the flag down towards the first corner. Mazda trying to get side by side with one of, that would have been Renger van der Zande and Tristan Nunes, I think, going side by side as they were going through there. And has that van der Zande gone through? Yes, it is. Yeah. So that is very important for the championship. Yes, sorry, Jeremy.
Yeah, great minds think alike. You're absolutely right. That is. It's going to be potentially an extra 7 to 6. It's only 1 point, but hey, it could be coming down to single points at the end of this championship in a couple of weeks' time.
Meantime, in GT Le Mans, Earl Bamber, Antonio Garcia, Nick Tandy separated by less than a second at the moment, and then a second further back, Tom Milner, Connor De Filippi, another couple seconds further back, but all of those drivers down to John Edwards are all on the lead lap in GT Le Mans as they plunge down through the corkscrew in behind the GT Daytona leader, Mario Farnbacher, who's pulled out nearly 3 seconds on Bill Oberlin. Balzan in 3rd place now, ahead of Alvaro Parent. Then Roman De Angelis has got ahead of Pat Long on the restart for Wright Motorsport. Then Andy Lally for GRT Magnus. So there's been a bit of a shake-up there. Challenge for 2nd place, rebuffed by Taylor at turn 2. Nasser got up the inside but didn't manage to make that stick. That was an opportunity there Lawson Aschenbach in and out of the pits in the 74 Riley Motorsports AMG GT3. It's dropped him down to 9th position, and a spin for the Scuderia Corsa car. That was Balzani, just got up into 3rd position ahead of Alvaro Parent at turn 2. He's facing the wrong direction. He gets it pointing back in the right way at least, and heads under the walkover bridge. Under the walkover bridge. Now, did he get to help from somebody there? There was the yes,
the right
Porsche.
Car.
Patrick Long, how rude. There were lapped cars in there. Jeremy, you were talking about this. There were lapped cars in there. There were GT Le Mans cars in there. Really messy restart for the GT runners.
Happens all the time, doesn't it? We see contact between the GTLMs and the GTDs more so than the prototypes when they get ready for these late race restarts, and that's again what seemed to happen there. Really unfortunate for Alessandro Balzan, looking for another top 4 finish to add to the magnificent victory a couple of weeks ago at Petit Le Mans. But there's all sorts of really good battling going on here up and down the field in all of the classes. But we saw, by the way, did we not, the number 10 car, didn't he move past number 77?
Yes, that's changed back round again.
Indeed, and not only that, but Renger van der Zande fell 5 or 6 seconds behind him on that lap, so they must have got together further around the lap before the pass. We didn't see what happened afterwards. Clearly something did.
Nick Tandy now 2 seconds away from Antonio Garcia, but Porsche's 1st and 3rd at the moment in GTLM. Farnbacher by 2.5 seconds from Oberlin. Parent now 3 seconds further back. Heart of Racing are the winners there. Roman De Angelis up to 4th position now, ahead of GRT Magnus, Andy Lally's Lamborghini. So the head of GTD, it's Acura, BMW, Acura, Aston, Lamborghini, Porsche, Lexus, Ferrari, Mercedes, Audi for the top 10. 9 manufacturers in the top 10 cars. Magnificent stuff. So that battle up to the top of the corkscrew. Roman De Angelis looking very, very racy indeed, and that car looking good. There is a lapped car in there. That must be Mark Miller for Gradient. Yes, it is. And he is right in the thick of that fight at the moment, almost being a bit of a tail gunner for the Acura ahead of him, which is Alvaro Parent. Meantime, there's a pass for position, an attempted pass for position 3. 3rd spot in the GT Le Mans category. Battles everywhere at the moment, and that pass is done. Corvette goes past Nick Tandy. So that is Tom Miller going past Nick Tandy through turn 4 up towards turn 5. Just behind them. Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Beg your pardon, the number 14 car, that is also a lap down actually. The championship leader in GTD. That's had a pretty disappointing day. In fact, did they make I'm not sure what happened. Did they make, because they've lost actually a couple of positions at the restart as well. He's fallen behind. Well, he's still ahead of Mark Miller, but he's fallen behind Spencer Papelli, who's passed both of those 2 cars. So those 3 cars, number 30, 14 and 22, are all a lap down. Also, Lawson Aschenbach made a pit stop right after.
Correct, just as we went back to green.
Yeah.
He was in and out very, very quickly indeed. 51 minutes on this stint for Farnbacher at the front of the field. 63 car incident under review, say race control. So that spin involving the right Porsche and Patrick Long, and the 63 Scuderia Corsa Ferrari under review. Right, here's the Aston Martin down to the left-hand side of Mark Miller. This time, yeah, that's done. Here comes the Lamborghini as well, and the right Porsche there. Mark Miller is a lap down. He's trying to stay out of the way. And also there's a Lexus in there as well now.
Not trying to stay out of the way, actually.
Yeah.
Didn't let Patrick Long go through. Patrick Long's going to go through now as they head towards turn 4. He had to work a lot harder. That was probably necessary. But then, of course, Mark Miller is involved in his own battle there. He's trying to keep up with Jack Hawksworth.
Jack Hawksworth, that's what I was trying to see, Jeremy, whether that was a battle, and it is, and that's why the Impasse Sullivan car is trying to keep those cars behind him, and therefore as a buffer between himself and Mark Miller for that spot. Bit of a lights flashing behind Jack Hawksworth at the moment. That's Roman De Angelis as they go up the Rahal straight and into the braking area at the top of the corkscrew. Now diving down the hill, and the Aston goes down the inside. Lovely manoeuvre, and following through will be the GRT Magnus Lamborghini. So that's 4th, 5th, and Patrick Long 6th now in GTD. Meantime, at the head of the field, Cameron's pulled out 2 seconds on Ricky Taylor, who's got 1.5 seconds on NASA, who's got 1 second on Harry Tinknell. Acura, Cadillac, Mazda, another second further back for Nunes, and then 7 seconds back now, Van der Zande. That car has got the fastest lap of the race, a 16.6, but whatever happened to drop those 4-5 seconds, Jeremy, the pace has gone out of that car since then. I say that. He's just done a 70.
He's actually, he had been closing in a little bit. Actually, until this last lap, he had been closing in a little bit. It was 6.5 seconds. It was down to less than 6 last time around. So he's running pretty much the same pace. In fact, number 77 is catching back up again to number 55. So they're all closing in a little bit at the back there, but there was clearly something happening that we didn't see between the number 10 and the number 77 right after the restart.
Yeah, definitely the 10 was ahead. Definitely the 10 was ahead at one stage. I saw it with my own eyes, and I saw it at the timing and scoring. And now, in fact, Van der Zande is getting a little bit of hassle from Sebastian Bourdais, who's a lap behind him, but behind him on the track as well. Down in the final corner, the leader having to deal with GTD traffic. Second place, seat above Comet, goes left, then right, then left again as they come onto the start-finish straight. And now it's all getting a bit unnecessary right in front of the third place battle for DPI. That's the 31 Philip Nasser, and Harry Tinknell's now right there as well. The two battling Acuras, and they are battling now, trying to go one either side of the Magnus GRT Lamborghini, and in fact do that as they go through turns 3 and down through to turn 4. By the way, no action for that incident involving car 63 and 16 on the restart. That has been reviewed though. I think that might be the first review of the day actually, which is actually quite remarkable in itself. Under 9 minutes to go. Penske. Philip Nasser for Whelan Engineering. So that's Acura, Cadillac, and still plenty of traffic. And the thing is now, Jeremy, as they come round to catch this traffic, it's all packed up because they're battling after the safety car restart as well. And these are real danger times for all of the DPIs coming through.
Very much so, yeah. It's dicey out there. I mean, it's super competitive at the front of the field now. We've got all 4 or even 5 cars now within a couple of seconds or so as they go across the line to complete lap 112 with 8 minutes remaining in this race, and it's very much game on. A little bit deep. Felipe Nasser runs in turn 2, but there's nothing to choose between the two Penskes. I was wondering before whether there might be some team orders there at an Acura Team Penske to favour the championship aspirations for number 7 car, but you know, for number 6 guys, Dane Cameron and Juan Pablo Montoya, I mean, they had just a dismal season. Anything that can go wrong has gone wrong, so they would be very loath, I believe, to give up a victory here at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca.
Yeah,
WeatherTech Raceway.
That's all right, that's 1 each now. Those two guys are on exactly the same fuel strategy. They're pitted on the same lap. They don't have to split the pit strategy because they don't sit in adjacent pit boxes, of course. So they're on their 26th lap. I think that even that short bit of yellow that we've had will have allayed any fears that there might have been. It was looking to be quite a long run to the flag, right on the ragged edge of being okay. But I think they've probably behind the safety car. And what did we have effectively there? We had 3 safety car laps. That might have saved them maybe a lap of fuel, maybe a little bit more, and that's probably all they needed. But there's no quarter being asked or given now. They are certainly racing through. And in fairness, Felipe Nasr has caught them again. He's right with them again now. And we know that that Cadillac is a little bit more frugal when it needs to be. So he'll be turned up to the max as well. So it's going to... We've been seeing this, Jeremy. It is going to come down to who's got the life of the tyres in the last 5 or 6 minutes.
I think it is, and this is far from over. It's great stuff, and all of the classes too. In GTLM, all of a sudden, Antonio Garcia is right with Earl Bamber. Tommy Milner is up into 3rd place at the expense of Nick Tandy. Of course, Nick Tandy was he's trying to stretch his fuel, I think, a bit, isn't he? He's running on a 2-stop strategy.
Correct. He's just done his fastest lap of the race last time around.
Oh, okay, well, he was passed soon after the restart by number 4 car, which is now pulled away from it to the tune of about 3 seconds or more. But certainly came on the front in GTLM with Antonio Garcia having called up to Earl Bamber. GTD, meanwhile, Mario Fabak has just checked out. 5 seconds he's got a margin now over Bel Arbelin, who's got his mirrors full of Alvaro Parent. And not far behind him is Rowan DeAndres, and Andy Lally is on the charge as well, up into 5th position in car number 44.
I think the time's just going to run out for Roman De Angelis to get on the podium for Harter Racing Team, but he's put in a good... He took 6/10 out of the guys ahead, but he's nearly 2 seconds behind Parent at the moment, who's not exactly hanging around himself. Coming down to the last 5 minutes then of the penultimate IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship race of the season. We're at the IMSA WeatherTech SportsCar Championship, second to last round then, Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship, and it is coming down to the last 4 laps, maybe 5, depends on when they cross the line. Fuel, we believe, is not now an issue, as the battling Acuras are now 1.4 seconds apart, as Dane Cameron once again establishes a little bit of an advantage and puts the BMW Team RLL M8 GTE behind him and in between himself and Ricky Taylor, who's now got a full second on Felipe Nasr. But Harry Tinknell's only 9/10 behind. That's the top 4, by the way, 3.3 seconds apart. Top 5 separated by 4.5 seconds. Yes, I know we've had a late-ish race caution, but these guys are now fully turned up to 11 and giving it all they can, with little groups, clumps of cars, all with their own battle, and almost off the track in fact, for the bright red BMW that just about holds on to it as they were coming out of turn 4 side by side with the rapid prototypes, all those top 4-5 prototypes desperately trying to find a 10th here, a couple of 10ths there, because that will be very important in these last couple of laps.
This is great stuff. This is really building up. The race was by regular standards fairly dull for much of it, but it certainly livened up towards the end here. And there's still traffic to be played out. There's one of the Mausers there getting held up a little bit coming down the hill through the rainy curve, and that's going to cost him some momentum. The real surprise in his final stages now, all of a sudden, Renger van der Zende has fallen a long way back. He's dropped about 10 seconds over the last 4 or 5 laps. Not quite sure why. But a bunch of it came on 1 lap. So we'll have to see whether he's in trouble, whether he's just realised he's not going to make any other ground, so he's just kind of stroking it home from there.
Yeah, fair point.
This is a battle for the lead in GTLM, though. There's only 2 or 3 car lengths between the Porsche and the Corvette as they head up through turn 5 and up the hill to 6.
That's Earl Bamber in the 912, Antonio Garcia in the traditional Corvette yellow. At various times it's been Velocity yellow, Millennium yellow. Does look very good indeed in that colour. Porsche in white and grey with the red stripe. That's the colours, the preferred colours for the Porsche Works cars this year. I do like a Carrera white, a racing white 911, and I saw a new 992 in that colour scheme in all white with black wheels the other day on the road, and thought how good it looked. Very wide body car, the new 992. They crossed the line with exactly 2 minutes to go. Dane Cameron still to come round, and as they crossed the line there was 0.6 of a second between them. It looks like it's going to be a 2-3 for Corvette. That would be enough for them to take the championship, I think. We've seen Porsches and Corvettes battling all the way to the flag here before at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and I remember how that ended on the front straight. 90 seconds, where's the leader?
All of a sudden got a bit of breathing space over his teammate Ricky Taylor.
Just enough.
To come down again on that last lap. It was out to over 2 seconds last time around.
Fastest lap of Earl Bamber and the 912 cars raced last time around, a 1:22.8, but he needs that to stay ahead of that Corvette. The leaders are at the top of the hill. Now, we didn't get the white flag last time, so we will get the white flag this time around for Cameron and Taylor. It's closing in, and it would make sense for these two cars to swap positions for the championship. As it stands at the moment, if there are no further changes, they will be trailing by 1 point. If they change it over,
which they just did,
they will leave with a 2-point championship lead, and that is good team sport. It is a team sport, and that is a pass for the championship lead as it stands right now. So Ricky Taylor then leads with the slight damage to the right front, and I wonder if they could or would have done that without that race caution to get them a little bit closer.
If they're going to do it now, they would have done it. They would have done it then as well.
Ironically, of course, it was, and I'm absolutely certain now, it was the dive plane from the left front of the 7 when it wasn't Ricky, actually, it was his teammate Elio Castroneves who ploughed into the back of the Corvette and hit it so hard it lifted the back wheels off the ground at turn 11, and that piece of the car ended up off the track and was then thrown back on the track by the battling Mazdas. So the Hyundai Monterey SportsCar Championship at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca has come down to a last 30-minute caution and a dash for the flag. Huge gaggle of cars coming out of the final corner, and there's going to be 1 or 2 of these that are going to have to do an extra lap. There's a lift off from the leader as they went through, and it is Ricky Taylor who takes the checkered flag. So it's Acura Team Penske, 7 from 6. They reprised their race victory here last year. GTLM will go on for 1 more lap. Earl Bamber has not got it done yet. They're still fighting, and he had Antonio Garcia right behind him. Milner will be confirmed in 3rd position in GTLM from Tandy. It looks very much as though Meyershank Racing's Acura number 86 will win GT Daytona.
Yeah, but what for 2nd place?
It's very close indeed for 2nd position between Bill Oberlin and Alvaro Parent, and still the battle for the lead in GTLM.
Yes, 4-car battle for 2nd place in GTD.
Goes across.
Nothing to choose between them.
This has been a great run by Meyershank Racing, bit of showboating out the final corner by Super Mario Farnbacher, and he will take a win for Acura. So Acura once again with 2 victories, 2 class victories in 1 race. Here comes Earl Bamber into the final corner. Where's the Corvette? Is that the Corvette ahead? No. Corvette sits in behind. I had to check that. It was 0.9 of a second. There was some dirt thrown up, and I was concerned that the Corvette might have sneaked through there. But it is Earl Bamber that wins and gets Porsche's first victory of the season. But that is enough for the championship for Corvette.
Second last week.
Sorry, first for the 912, isn't it?
Got it.
Yeah, my apologies. Yes, thank you. What a season of... what a race that's been, Jeremy, at the end there.
Yeah, super tight in Bill Oblin, for some reason, really struggling towards the end of the race. He just fell away from Mario Farnbacher by more than the second lap. Maybe he's just been super defensive. I don't know whether he had a problem, but Bill Oblin, he hung on to second place for Turner Motorsport in the BMW, but only just over Alvaro Pret, Roman DeAndres and Andy Lally. Nose to tail across the line they went. And then in sixth place, disappointing result really for Patrick Long, who was looking so good in the top four for most of the race.
Oh, brilliant stuff down in Victory Circle already. Ricky Taylor, Elio Castro-Neves. That was a team victory, and that was a team victory with championship aspirations. Damage to that car with Castro-Neves earlier on taking off the left-hand side dive planes. They fell off the track. They were flicked back on the track with just under half an hour to go, and by two Mazdas prototypes side by side. And
oh my God. No, you do it so well.
Corvette then with championship on. Well, have they got the championship? Is that close enough?
Corvette.
Yeah, I think they might have had to win actually in the drivers and team titles.
No, they'll just need to start next time out.
Okay.
Haven't got that far yet.
Okay. Jeremy doing the arithmetic. Well, had a tweet from Corvette Racing saying that they were looking at wrapping up the drivers and teams titles today with 14 minutes to go. And they were in second place at that point. So let's do the arithmetic. And let's remind you of how it's finished. GTD, Acura number 86 from Oberlin, number 96 from 57. So two Acuras on the podium. Great result for Heart of Racing team and the Aston Martin. Another top 5 finish for Roman De Angelis and Ian James in the Aston. GT Le Mans, Porsche and the 912 taking its first race of the year ahead of the two Corvettes on the podium. And at the front of the field, two Acuras and a Cadillac. Jeremy Shaw. Let's have a quick look at the numbers. Oh, and Bill Oberlin just having a quick word down there in the pit lane, and it looked friendly. Yeah, yes, it was. Okay. Jeremy Shaw, what have you got for us points wise?
Well, I'm working my way back down through in the DPIs. We've got a new championship leader. That will be indeed, as you were suggesting, John Hindhaugh, it'll be Elio Castro-Neves and Ricky Taylor will now have a 2-point edge going into the final race at Sebring in a couple of weeks' time. 242 to 240, 233 for Pipo Derani in the third position. So he's made up ground on Ryan Briscoe and Renger van der Zande, of course, but lost it to Castro-Neves and Taylor. So it'll be 9 points then covering the top 3 positions in DPI heading into the finale. In the manufacturers battle, 363 points for Cadillac, continue to lead by just 1 now over Acura with a 1 race remaining. Championship, I think, tied up for Patrick Kelly in LMP2. In GTLM, that's all they've got to do is start now. Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor have 325, a 30-point lead over their teammates Oliver Gavin and Tommy Milner. 289 for Jesse Krohn and John Edwards, who finished in the 5th position today ahead of their own teammates. So they cannot now catch Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor. I'm still working on the deep in GTD.
Brilliant race by all concerned. proper endurance race. The sprint races often do turn into that, particularly when we get long periods of green flag racing. Looked like we would have gone. In fact, I think we would have gone all green, to be honest. We had 2 hours and 16 minutes of green, and then another 20 minutes of green. So just that very short 5-minute duration of full course yellow, and that was all down to a piece of debris that had been off the track, getting pushed back onto the circuit on the exit of turn 11. You could argue about whether that was on the racing line or not, but it was big and potentially dangerous at that part of the circuit. GTD points, Jeremy.
Yeah, big switch around. What a crucial victory this could turn out to be for Mario Farnbacher and Matt Murray. They've had no luck at all the last 3 races. I think they've had incidents, really not of their making. They were leading before that. They're now back in the lead of the championship going into the final round. 256 points for the Acura team for Meyer Shank Racing. The Porsche will move into second place. Ryan Hardwick and Patrick Long for Wright Motorsports on 249, so 7 behind. 1 behind them is Aaron Tielitz, and 2 behind Tielitz remains Jack Hawksworth after a really difficult day for the number 14 Aim Vassar-Sullivan Lexus. Big surprise there to see them struggling. The good news is they will have wrapped up the they have wrapped up the Sprint Cup Championship for the Lexus team, and also won the Team and Manufacturers Championship in the WeatherTech Sprint Cup for GT Daytona.
Thank you very much to Shea Adam, our VP Racing Fuel Pit and Paddock reporter. We'll have more from her in Michelin Post-Race Tech. Jeremy Shaw joins me continues with me in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. We're exclusively live for Michelin Post-Race Tech next here on IMSA Radio. Thanks for joining us today from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.